How is everybody? So I have three devices, um, all of which are almost dead because I've been like digging a bunch on all three devices. So I had to charge some and send the files to my other devices so that I can alternate them. Um, but I spent most of my day digging, looking for any information that I could find. Stop it. Nobody's here. Nobody's here. Um, and I came across I know I posted the results of an investigation, but that was the 2010 investigation. There was also an investigation in 1998, right? So there was an investigation in 1990, right? Uh, all of these things show a systemic failure, and none of us should have been there. It really makes me sick to see how the entire system, not just the family school, but also the authorities that were involved in doing the investigation and all of that stuff, like they all failed. It was just a failure at every single step, right? There's also some in between emails between Mike Argyros, who was he became in charge of the school when Tony and Betty like kind of were phased out and Mike came in. There's also an investigation that was conducted by the state of New Jersey. And there's a lot of documents in there between a judge, because there was a student that left and had went on record with allegations of abuse. So obviously, if a school district is paying them, they will obviously then investigate. There's some of that. There's also a full FOIA request on the school. Incident reports. It's really a lot. And I'm just, like we always knew that the school had connections, right? Because there were so many. It was like, it wasn't just a couple of students that were alleging abuse, right? Like, even if the students that were senior members or considered senior members, even if they left, right, even they knew of the abuse. So it was across the board, everybody alleging abuse except the staff, right? And so I found this page that did really good. I'm sorry, I'm moving away, but I'll get closer. I found this page that did a really good job of organizing it all, right? So I'm going to start at the beginning. The FOIA from 1998, the German Shepherd is trying to attack my cat, and I don't mean that literally. They play, and she beats his ass, but he's like a horse, and it's like you hear him on the floor. So there's really nothing I could do about that. I'm going to try to go in order. But it's the first FOIA is 107 pages, right? So there is no way that to say that anybody was unaware of the abuse is just a flat out lie. And then to double and triple down, it is truly alarming. So I want to start in the beginning. And the first thing is there is a 1990 inspection report. Let me see if I can find it while Charlie acts up in the background. Charlie is the German Shepherd. Papa, somebody asked in my comments, Papa is a little Chihuahua. And I don't really worry about Charlie because he can't really catch my cat, but Papa can catch the cat. But she gives him a run for his size, that's for sure. Okay, so I'm trying to find, I wrote it down in order so I had it. A lot of these documents also start, like this one starts in 1990, but then it goes through years, right? Sorry. So the inspection date is January 3rd of 1990. None of us would have, if they did their jobs, none of us would have been there at this time, right? 1990, I went to the school in 96. So it was certainly years before me, right? And when I think about the damage that the school caused, right? It's infuriating because all of it was unnecessary, right? All of it was done for what? Greed? That's it. All of like the widespread damage was done for what? Truly is disgusting. Charlie, come here with Sissy. All right, so I'm gonna try to sort through this while they'll calm down in a few minutes. It's the first couple of pages are like it says nature of population served, services provided, compliance with laws and regulations. I'm going to skip through all that and get to the narrative. Hi guys. Okay, so on Monday, January 3rd, 1990, the Division of Alcoholism and Alcohol Abuse conducted an investigation on the family operated by the Family Foundation, Inc., an uncertified program located on Abe Lord Road in Hancock, New York. The inspection was led by, I'll leave that name out, right? And was performed by him and another name, Bureau of Standards and Certification. Charlie. Here, go get this, Charlie. Go get it. Sorry, I tried to throw his toy over there, but he didn't get distracted. The Bureau of Treatment Program Development, there's a name redacted, architect, another name, coordinator of the New York State Division of Alcoholism and Alcohol Abuse. An introductory conference was conducted with Anthony and Rita Argyros. These were the children, right? Program directors, also redacted. President and Comptroller, Business Manager of the Family Foundation School, Inc., and Susan Ray, Executive Secretary of the Foundation and Secretary of the program. So as I said, a lot of these... Papa, come with Sissy. Now they'll calm down. Hi, Chrissy. Don't start. Don't start. Charlie is like a toddler, legitimately. I'm trying to find where I was because I lost it. Yeah, it's constant. It is constant. I thought that he would slow down because he's old. He's 9. No, he's got the attention span of a toddler. Go get it. Come on, go over there. And I usually play with them, so they're like always up my ass. You know what I'm saying? I really think that Charlie believes he's my dog now, and he's going to be really upset when I go back to Florida. I'll leave the name out. Opened the introduction with an explanation of the purpose of the inspection to evaluate the character and competence of the operators of this program, since they have submitted a CON application for a different program at another location, and to assess the need for certification of the present operation. During the introduction, the Argyros described various aspects of their program in response to questions. As described, the center of the program seems to be a community with the family atmosphere, with surrogate parents and peers acting like quasi-siblings. What a weird word to use, like in a formal thing, right? The community is structured around and permeated by AA and religious principles. The community is the center of all activities conducted by the program. The facility has previously been inspected on October 2nd, 1987 by representatives from the Division of Alcoholism and Alcohol Abuse, the Division of Substance Use, Services and the Department of Social Services. At that time, the family was described by its operators as a school and home of everyday living with academic and vocational components, strongly permeated by religious and AA principles. It's crazy. It was claimed that the family was not a facility for rehabilitation and did not offer treatment sentence services or therapy. That's weird, right? Only teachers in the school were considered to be staff. Really? Everyone else was considered to be members of the family. Detailed school records were kept along with intake forms. There were no treatment plans, progress notes, reviews, or discharge summaries. That's odd, right? For some place that is, you would think, I mean, I know when I was in nursing school, my notes had to be so detailed, right? Like this, how do you not have any treatment plans? Nothing? Anyway, it was evident from the number of sources that all the residents admitted had alcohol and or drug problems, were in need of continuing treatment, and were receiving a form of treatment through what would be best described as a therapeutic community. The facility was not just providing domestic care and comfort, but was providing treatment services for residents who were in need of such services due to alcohol and or drug problems, and was therefore subject to a certification by the Division of Alcoholism and Alcohol Abuse. Amen. Amen. Hey, I don't know if you want to say who you are. It seemed as though the faculty was attempting to avoid certification by eliminating such items as treatment staff and case records with treatment plans, progress notes, reviews, and discharge planning. Following the inspection, this is before, so this is in 1990, right? But that's what makes me so mad, is that none of us should have been there. Like, none of us, right? And they were telling our parents that they were giving these services that they were not qualified to give. Yeah, I don't like to I know that you've done an interview, but I don't like to out anybody. Students that come in, they're more than welcome to say, I watched your interview and I was like, I think I was there with this dude, but I left in 97. I'm sorry, I lost my place now. Following the inspection, the facility made a decision and took steps to apply for certification. I left in 97. I walked the day after I turned 18. But I remember, I'm sorry, y'all, I'll get back to it. There's not a lot of people that are very public about their situation, right? So I don't want to out anybody. You know what I'm saying? It's not my, yeah, right, Evie. What? It gets worse. If you can even imagine, these documents get worse because I was like seething mad reading them, right? Because all of the destruction, like for what? Money, greed, pride. Maybe y'all need to take your fucking inventory. Following the inspection, I'm sorry, the facility made a decision and took steps to apply for certification by the division. It took steps, to comply with what was perceived as regulatory requirements. Yet the family, the style of community, was seen and is still seen as the essential and central element of treatment and rehabilitation. Whatever else has been done and added on in terms of staff, services, and records is perceived as that which necessitates certification. Without the added elements, the operators of the facility seem to think that they are not subject to certifications. Interesting, right? This was especially made clear in a discussion with Michael Argyros, the owner, right? At the end of the inspection on January 3rd, 1990, when he stated that the program presently operated needed to be certified, but that if they had to move towards certification, too soon, they would go back to what they had previously been doing, which he believed would not be subject to certification. I know. So Casey, this has all come up. So I started doing a series about the family for National Child Abuse Prevention Month, right? And it just happened that Paul got arrested. And then I came across, when were you there, Casey? You said 98. So were you there for Jim Cavanos? Because his wife seems to think that for the years that she has, invalidated the abuse, that she could sit on her YouTube channel and talk about us. You might want to go back and watch some of my videos. And now they'll start up again. Casey, are you in the Facebook group? Can you send me a DM on Facebook? Stop. It's the Chihuahua. Right. So that's the problem, right? Is that they had no certification. Oh, really? I know. Hi. I talk about that a lot. Can you send me an email so I have contact info? I talk about that a lot. Like, I feel like me getting an apology from my mom was so, like, it changed a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? It made such a difference. And it really sucks. I feel sorry for the kids who don't get that from their parents. And I feel like they struggle a little bit more, honestly. But my email is in my About Me section. We should talk. Okay, sorry. I did that. The total census report. Come on, Papa. Charlie, go. Take this. Come on. Hold on. Let me get the dog away from the other dog. Come on, Sissy. Come over here. Sit down. No. There we go. Yes, absolutely. Email me. It's no. Sit. No, we're not doing it. I came prepared with tissues this time because last time I made a mess. No, right? Like, and that's the crazy thing. Like, that when you take a position, especially in that type of work, that you should have certain certifications, credentials, right? Like, that. So this was just like a systemic failure. Like, they knew that they needed to have it. They knew that they didn't have it. And it was all just swept under the rug, right? That's what's so fucking crazy is that for decades, okay, this was an issue for decades. Come on, Pop. Come with Sissy. The total census, no, Charlie, go. The total census reported, come on, Charlie, sit. I'm going to lock you up. Sit down. I know. Sit down. Come on, Sissy, sit. The total census reported on the day of the inspection was 47 residents, right? Now, keep in mind that in the early 2000s, they went up to 200, right? So this was not, I'm sorry, these dogs are driving me crazy. Stop. I keep bringing you away from him and you keep going to him. Stop it. Charlie, go. They're driving me crazy. And the Chihuahua keeps going from like one side to the other, but the German Shepherd is going to spill my coffee, and that's really going to piss me off. Stay here. Sit. There you go. Okay. There we go. All right. So 47 residents. Although the Giros emphasized the youth of the residents, all male, were between the ages of 19 and 29, and this is redacted. Were male and female. Charlie, get away from him. Charlie. Oh, it's so annoying. Right, exactly, Casey. Exactly. Not just that, but they built the barn. Like, literally, they got it was all labor that the kids did. It's truly crazy. It is truly mind-blowing that it was able to go on for so long. A little over of half were from New York State. The family provides a school, grades 7 to 12, as well as general education diploma instruction. This was before I was there. We only had school when I was there. Some residents go out to area colleges and have some outside jobs. That was also not possible when I was there. Like once you were there, right? You didn't leave. You didn't go off campus unless it was like you were dying because they didn't take you regularly to doctors. Truly madness. Some residents go to area colleges and some have, there is also vocational program. All residents are involved in some kind of work on the property: house cleaning, maintenance, cooking, farm activities, right? There is individual and group counseling. Bullshit. Right, exactly. The dogs are driving me nuts. As well as community meetings and AA meetings. Ready for this, Casey? Residents are expected to stay for 16 months. Most stay 14 or 15 months. At the time of inspections, there were residents who had been at the facility from 1 month to over 3 years. No, they knew, prickly pear. They knew. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's why I'm trying to like move the cord so they don't break my laptop. They knew. Yeah, they knew. There was no, and this is, I said this in my original video to her, right? Is that they knew, right? That's what you can't. Oh, now Papa's got it. Let go. Give it to Sissy. Don't bite me. They knew. There were blatant, the work sanctions were not off in a field and nobody saw, right? You knew. So for them to say that they didn't know is truly, Casey has an interview on the Hammer as well. I think he's after me though. I think his interview is after mine. Come on, give me this toy. Give me the toy. Charlie, go. Give it to Sissy. Come on. Give it to Sissy or sit down. Right. And I'll tell you what. Exactly. Residents are most stay 14 to some were there for 3 years. Many discharged residents keep in touch. Hey, Jimmy, you listening? Are you listening? Many discharged residents keep in touch with the family through an alumni association. Many also continue to be active in AA. The Argyros admitted that more aftercare activity had to be developed. Come on. Give me this goddamn thing. Give me this thing. Give it to Sissy. Let go. This chihuahua is vicious. Right. And that's, so I say that often. I did mine already. Casey, I'm saying he came after mine, right? His interview was done after mine. Let go. No, give it to Sissy. Come on. Charlie, go. Hold on a second. I'm going to go. Get in. Go. Who is it? Go get him. Come on, Finn. Okay, stay down. Okay, I'm back. His interview was after mine. My interview with him was like, I don't know. It was, well, here's the problem. They're my mom's fur babies. They're not mine. They think that they're mine, but they're not. The Argyros admitted that more aftercare activity had to be developed. So I know that if you look up the family school, what you're seeing now on like Google Earth is definitely different than what it was when I was there, right? The new school, which is the primary big building, that wasn't there when I left. It says there's one building of 2 stories, which houses the school program with offices and classrooms. Now my phone is ringing and I don't know where it is because the dogs were all over the place. Hold on a second. I can feel it. There it is. It also has kitchen, dining room, lounge area, and living quarters for Anthony and Rita Argyros. One of the rooms in this building is used at night as a dormitory for female residents. That wasn't the case when I was there. When I was there, they did have separate dorms. There were 2 single-family houses on the property. One is used by a member of the Argyros family with the dorm for males in its basement. The other is the chaplain's home with the dorm for males and females in the basement. So when I was there, the Tony and Betty's house, the females were downstairs. Casey, you were friends with Oba, right? I feel like you were friends with Oba. If you know who Oba is, then you know who I am. I need a drink. The dogs were driving me nuts. Okay, here's the important part. Yeah, Oba Reed. Right, Paul's lab was the basement dorm. That's the thing, right? It's truly crazy. The inspection following the introductory conference involved the following activities: interviews of staff and residents, survey of buildings, review of resident records, and other documents provided by the program. At the end of the inspection, the Argyros were again informed about the purpose of the inspection and told they would receive a report from the division. Ready? This is just like who's where. How many are from New York? How many are from New Jersey? We actually, like Oba, for instance, he came from like Sri Lanka because his dad was involved in politics. The kids wound up coming from all over the place. At the introductory discussion, the program directors, Anthony and Rita Argyros, and their son, Michael. So it's Tony and Rita. Tony was the original owner. Rita was his daughter. She actually is the reason that the family became the family. And their son, Michael, who was in charge of the program when Tony and Betty got too old and moved away. Stated in a variety of ways that most of the residents came to the program due to alcoholism, alcohol abuse, and or drug abuse, but they had no certification to be giving those treatments to us. They never got that certification. Crazy, right? Mr. Argyros stated that over 90% of the residents come for behavior problems which are related to the use of alcohol and or drugs. Mr. Argyros also stated that 70% of the residents have been in treatment programs for alcoholism and or drug abuse prior to coming to the family. Not me. Yeah, Jersey has, let's say, Jersey at this time had 9. Mr. Argyros, I'm sorry, I read that. Parents and prospective patients get in touch with the family or are referred there. Yes, it's closed. Through a network of parents and programs who know about the place. This network was referred to Mr. Argyros as the AA Grapevine. He also mentioned that ACOA groups and tough love groups were part of a contract and referral network. So I know I came from a place called Four Winds, which was a psychiatric facility. I later found out that there were many other students that came from that place, right? Because they would have, it was not a contract, but they would almost get kickbacks, right? Which is now illegal, but it wasn't then, right? This network, I read that, I'm sorry. The Argyros reported that parents bring offspring to the family because the coat is lower and they have exhausted insurance, cost is lower. Well, that's weird because the thing I just posted the other day said $6,800 a month. But anyway, cost is lower and they have exhausted insurance benefits. People are in dire need of the services for their offspring as reported by the Argyros. The whole, this is infuriating. The whole tone established by the Argyros was that the family being a place of last resort for prospective patients and parents with children who were having serious problems with alcohol and or drugs. The Argyros claimed that they did not advertise or sell the program in any way. So that is not true. I didn't have a drug problem or an alcohol problem, really, right? And this just goes to tell you that, like, this was the narrative that they pushed to the parents, right? They told our parents, oh, this is the last chance you have to save your kid. Like, it's crazy how, like, everything that we have, you know, dealt with or heard our entire life is all here in this document, right? It's really crazy how 30 years later they're still regurgitating the same shit. Like, it's all the same shit. Okay. In a discussion with Michael Argyros at the end of the day concerning the purpose of the inspection, he stated that the program presently operated the family needed to be certified by the division and that the Argyros realized this. He further stated that if they had to move towards certification too soon, that they would go back to what didn't I read that already? I feel like I read that already. A comprehensive description. One of the documents made available at the time of the inspection was a document entitled, it's in quotes, "The Family Foundation, Inc., the Family School, a Comprehensive Description," referred to hereafter as the description, Appendix 2. It was dated, this is pissing me off, November 1st, 1989, and was prepared by Emmanuel Argyros, the Family Foundation, Inc. This document states that the purpose of the Family Foundation is to assist and render support to young people who are suffering from drug and alcohol-related problems. The Family Foundation provides this assistance through the operation of an at-home private school known respectively as the Family and the Family School. The description notes that the family is a center for the study and application of the principles embodied in the fellowship programs of Alcohol Anonymous. It goes on to say that through the combination of home and school, residents are shown the virtues necessary for maintaining a morally responsible life, free and from the use of drugs and alcohol. Y'all don't live a fucking morally responsible life. And you don't use drugs or alcohol. So what the fuck does that say about you? Right, exactly. The description also states that the family's position on the disease of alcohol, in parentheses, it says chemical dependency, alcoholism, is that the family is the client in recovery. While we recognize, they spell recognize with an S. Interesting. The individual natures of the symptom bearer, we feel that addiction is a family disease and the dynamics of family dysfunctions need to be addressed and confronted. By lying to the parents, you cause more harm. The goals and objectives stated in the description indicate that the individuals who are admitted, in quotes, are significantly impaired by chemical dependency. That's a crock of shit. Under the heading, A Day of the Family, the description states that all residents attend AA and NA meetings and small group confrontational meetings on a regularly scheduled basis. It also states that on a daily basis, there is also a time for residents to reevaluate their own recovery process through a group process. Table topics, humiliation, degrading. I don't think it worked. One of 3 basic rules at the family is that there is no alcohol or drugs. Under the heading, Admission Procedures, the description describes an evaluation which is to be conducted prior to admission, which includes chemical dependency and treatment histories. Following admission, a written comprehensible individual, but they just said that there was no progress notes. Didn't they say that? A written comprehensive individual program and education plan shall be developed for each resident by the primary counselor and the education coordinator. This plan will identify long and short-term goals and objectives, prescribe an integrated program of activities and experience, schedule for the provision of all services and for review, include discharge planning. The progress plan is updated monthly by the primary counselor and reviewed by the support team at least quarterly. The description contains a section on a utilization review process, which evaluates the extent of the resident's chemical dependency problem. This is like blurred, so some of the words are hard to make out. and the continued effectiveness of and progress in a residential setting. Interviews with staff. Credentialed alcohol. So this is redacted. I'd really like to know who it was, but I bet you I'll be able to tell just by what they say. Works up to 30 hours a week as a counselor at the family. There is one other counselor who is CAC and works about 8 hours a week at the family. Rita and Anthony Argyros are applying to take the CAC exam. 2 resident staff and 1 teacher are reportedly going to apply for a CAC. Blank stated that blank alcohol, there's a lot redacted here, stated that 99% of intakes for the family have alcohol and/or drug problems. Blank attested to the fact that treatment plans are done and reviewed on a regular basis. Blank reported that there were regular individual counseling and a variety of groups conducted. And the other 2 counselors, Mr. and Mrs. Argyros, have caseloads. Blank is also involved in working with families or residents concerning chemical dependency issues. Interviews with residents. Residents were interviewed individually by 2 of the inspection staff. All stated in some way that they were at the family for alcohol and/or drug problems and were working to maintain abstinent lives. Blank admitted having been in treatment prior to coming to the family and came there due to the need for further treatment. What a mess. There were several informal interviews with other residents who also indicated that they were at the family because of drug and/or alcohol problems. They found treatment hard but necessary. What? Residents spoke of receiving individual and group counseling for their problems and made such remarks as living at the family was like being in an AA meeting 24 hours a day with torture, right? Case records. Interesting. There are 3 records for each student: individual case record, family record, and an academic record. All of the individual and family records were thoroughly reviewed. The academic records were reviewed just in terms of contents and contained reports on grades, attendance. Hi, Calamity. In every individual record reviewed, there were several forms utilized which indicated that residents came to the family because of alcohol and/or drug problems and were judged by family staff to have such problems and were admitted because of them. An incoming resident sheet, it's appendixed, included the following questions: how did you come here? What are your goals? Resident records included such answers as want to live a clean and sober life because of drinking and drugging. Most reviewed included completed form entitled Initial Assessment and Temporary Treatment Plan. It's also appendixed, which asked about the precipitative factor leading to admission to treatment and included answers reporting misbehavior related to alcohol and drug problems. A questionnaire in most records entitled Want Us to Help You With, and its appendix, dealt with such question as withdrawing from alcohol and other drugs, overcoming dependence on chemicals, dealing with, sorry, I just got a notification. Dealing with chemical, abusing friends and family members, avoiding a relapse, learning how to use Alcoholics Anonymous, finding a sponsor. The questions were to be answered yes or no. I'm trying to get to like the actual report. Conclusion. Here we go. It is evident that persons are being admitted as residents to the family because they are judged to have alcohol and/or drug problems, and they in fact do have such problems. To some extent, all residents are mentally disabled by virtue of alcoholism and/or substance abuse. Introductory discussion. As an introductory discussion of the program directors, Anthony and Rita Argyros and their son Michael described the program of services which are being provided for the residents of the family. Anthony Argyros stated that they have established a helpful environment through creating a family atmosphere with surrogate parents operating inside of this peer influence. Peer influence, all right. He said this whole environment is highly permeated by the AA principles, and it is. So, like, I would say that that's what's so crazy to me is like everything that they wanted, right? Everything that they fought so hard for us to be, we wound up becoming after 10 years of fucking our lives up, right? But they are so far away from those values, right? They're so far away from the thing that we want them to, you know what that's what's so fucking ironic. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. He reported that residents are provided with room, board, and education for $285 per person a week. So that has to be the motivation, right? They saw dollar signs. With an average length of stay, 15 months, the cost of an average stay would be $18,240 per resident. So you went from that to hundreds of thousands a month. That's got to be, like, that's the only thing that I could think being the goal. 12 female residents sleep in a room used as a dormitory in the main building. This room is used for other purposes during the day, in which time mattresses are stored. There are no beds. Adults, residing in the main building are responsible for the supervision. The Argiro stated that there is an academic program so this is before it became, right? This is before it really became the family, right? So it could have been stopped dead in its tracks. That's infuriating. That is like it really infuriates me. The Argiro stated that counseling services are provided by 4 counseling staff. 2 of these counseling staff are CAC. One provides 30 hours of counseling a week. The other CAC is available once a week. Anthony and Rita Argiros are the other 2 counselors. They reported that they each plan to apply for a CAC credential. So they didn't even have credentials in the beginning at all. Not that they did when I was there either, but you know, I want to see if there's anything here. Right, that's what's so infuriating. Like, that is just, it's truly fucking crazy, right? Because this is in, was it 1990, did I say? Or it started in 1987? Compliance with law and regulations by the provider and faculty. The program operated by the Family Foundation, Inc. is not designed according to regulations. No fucking shit. Appropriate regulations are being applied based on the findings of the inspection and the intent of the operators of the program as it was displayed during the inspection and in the findings. And they never got a certification to be an alcohol and drug program, right? Isn't that crazy? The Family Foundation, Inc. is operating a community residence in which alcoholism services are provided without an operating certificate having been obtained from the Director of Division in Alcohol and Alcoholism Abuse. The community residence being operated is of 2 types. A long-term residential chemical dependency program for youth, and B, a recovery home for adults. It is evident from statistical data, the length of stay in the program services provided, that 2 different populations are being served. Youth, persons between the age of 12 and 18, and adults, the average length of stay of both population is 14 to 15 months. Utilizing applicable regulations, this would indicate the operation of 2 types of community residential program. Following a statement of finding with the statement of deficiencies related to findings. Deficiencies are conditions found in violation or of regulations. I wonder if that's him. Or is it, what was the kid's first name? Was it Casey? Casey was just in here. Deficiencies are, I'm sorry, I read that. The deficiencies are based on applicable regulations found in part, I can't see that, operation of community residences for alcoholism, chemical dependency. All the deficiencies stated were found during the inspection. There might be other deficiencies which were not found and not stated due to the nature of the program and the nature of the inspection. God damn, dude. This is organization and administration. The Family Foundation, Inc. is a not for profit. So this is, it changed after this. New York State Corporation, which currently operates at-home and private school, known respectively as the Family and the Family School, for the purpose of treating the disease of addiction, chemical dependency, alcoholism, and assisting individuals in maintaining a morally responsible life free from the abuse of drugs and alcohol. This is crazy. There is a board of directors with officers. A list of the members of the board and officers may be found in the minutes of their meeting. Emmanuel Argyros, son of Anthony and Rita Argyros, is president of the board. There is a plan of organization with job descriptions along with resumes of individuals occupying positions. So Anthony Argyros, not Tony, Mike. Mike's real name is Emmanuel. They own all of Hancock. Oh, John Martin Crawford. Yeah, John Martin Crawford. He's not with us anymore. I found a video today that another page posted of like a tribute. He took his life in 2015. But this is all his work. Like he started it, right? And it's like that's the one that hits me the hardest, because he was like a hero to us, and we had no idea that he was gonna do that, you know. Anthony Argyros is executive director. The foundation leases buildings and property from interesting. Anthony and Rita Argyros, as well as paying for them various. Yeah, it's super unfortunate. Yeah. Yeah, he's really special to us. The board meets 7 times a year to maintain minutes of meetings, blah, blah, blah. I don't need that. Rights of residents. Rights? We had rights? I was unaware of us having rights. In the section on interpersonal relationships and discipline, Appendix 2, some basic ideas about authority and discipline are described. An accent is put on peer support and authority. I appreciated your video, though. I think I shared it on my community post. 3 basic rules are set down: no alcohol or drugs, no violence or threats of violence, no sex. The sanction for breaking any of these 3 is expulsion. What? What? I will say this. So there wasn't any violence towards other students, right? We didn't really see that. We were kind of all like in this same, we're in this together, except back then that was fractured. It's so hard to explain, but like, because you were so distrustful, because you didn't want to get in trouble for speaking the way you really felt, and you couldn't trust the other students to not tell on you, right? But it's crazy how it, the whole psychological, like it should, I wonder if we get a case study, because it's needed. The facility lacked an annual written evaluation of the total program. You don't say. The facility lacked policy and process for the review of untoward incidents. You don't say. There were no written policies and procedures regarding AIDS, HIV infection, and HIV testing. There was no evidence that the program was providing any HIV-related services for residents and staff. Now, remember what time this was, right? AIDS was an epidemic then, so there was nothing. I also think it's important to understand that they were very against homosexuality. Those kids had it hard if it was something that the staff knew about. Again, I didn't know that we had rights. I don't understand how that goes, because residents sign a form for release for publication and broadcast, which allows the family to utilize video and audio tapes, photographs, and written transcripts. Only the first name and first letter of the resident's last name is to be used. Residents are expected to do certain farm chores and housekeeping jobs. I don't think that scrubbing the gym floor with your toothbrush is considered, you know, this. Residents who are not in the family school go out to work. That wasn't a thing when I was there. The facility lacked policies regarding the rights of residents and also lacked procedures implementing and communicating such policies to residents. Well, because you normally just scream them in our face, right? Recovery plans and treatment plans, for the most part, were not individualized. Imagine that. The family policy and procedure concerning violence or threats of violence actually would promote violence. The use of a sanction, such as sitting in a corner publicly, is really denigrating to a resident. This is infuriating. Other such public acts impose this sanction display a lack of considerate and respectful care. For example, staff of the family opened and read a letter sent to a resident. The letter contained some sexual humor. The resident was forced to read the letter to the community and admit, blank, it's redacted, undercover sexual feelings towards the author of the letter. Staff was not competent and of sufficient number to provide services adequately. The faculty as a whole was severely overcrowded, and there was only 39 at this time. Remember that. Lacked adequate lounge, program, and bathroom space. The faculty did not provide a maximum amount of privacy per person, personal belongings, and/or communication. As part of the intake procedure, a number of personal items are confiscated. There is no policy statement justifying or stating the purpose of such confiscation. A strip search is also conducted. Again, there is no policy statement justifying such action. Residents are not allowed visitation without family groups for the first 120 days, and even then, visitation is allowed only before and after family counseling sessions at the discretion of staff. This is a severe limitation on privacy of communication without any justifying reason. So when you first get there, you're put on blackout with your family. You don't have any communication with them. The first time you see, I remember writing my dishonesty list, because they make you write what's called a dishonesty list that you then read to your parents. And I kept finishing it, and the counselor kept telling me, there's more. You did this, didn't you? Or you did that, didn't you? Right? And in hindsight, what they're doing is they're cementing your parents not taking you out, right? Because if you admit to all these bad deeds that you never did, right? Then your parents are going to be like, holy shit, my kid really does need this, right? And I think that that's a pretty common theme through most students, right? Residents must sign a mail release, which allows staff to open all letters. Again, this is a restriction of privacy and of communication without any stated justifying reason. I read something about publications already. Mental hygiene law. A number of residents are employed as staff by the facility. All residents are involved in doing a variety of work, including construction. None of the residents receive compensation for their services. General admission standards. General admission standards were stated by the directors of the program during this introductory discussion and by staff who were interviewed. Alcohol and/or drug problems. The general admission standards also implied in the introduction, goals and objectives, blah, blah, blah. The facility admits people who are suffering from drug and alcohol related problems in order to reduce, this is in quotes, to reduce the probability of relapse for persons who are significantly impaired by chemical dependency. Forms utilized for assessment and intake are aimed at gathering information on an individual and alcohol drug use in the past treatment, present problems related to such use. Eligibility for admission is not based on an acceptable diagnosis. The facility, lacks specific admission policies and criteria. The description contains a section of admission procedures, which is for the most part a direct quote of the thing before, and applies only to longer term credential chemical dependency programs for youth. This is crazy. Usually, parents of prospective residents or prospective students make contact with the family. There is usually an initial phone contact with some basic identifying information, the nature of the problem, and payment is discussed. When the individual arrives, an intake is conducted by residents, and then it's redacted. Following this, the individual is welcomed and oriented to the facility. Really? Much of this is done through peer involvement with other residents. The resident is also tested for the school, given a schedule, briefed on the rules of the facility, and placed into a dormitory. Each new resident is interviewed by a counselor, Anthony and Rita. The intake procedure checklist appendix indicates, that certain items are taken from residents upon admission. All shampoo, soap, hairspray, cigarettes, tapes, anything out, just ask. A strip search is conducted in the presence of 2 other people. Staff conducting this search were not identified. Of course not, because it was students, right? How could you identify the staff doing it if it was students? Residents sign a form, the family, police, and it's supposed to be policies, but it says police and procedures related to violence or threatening of violence. This form describes the levels of dealing with threats of violence, discussion, sanction. In parentheses, it says sitting in a corner, force, sanction, and restraint. Residents and parents also sign a form on visitation. The form relays that residents are not allowed visitation without family group for the first 120 days. Visitors are instructed not to bring inappropriate items. Visitors are limited to immediate family members or significant others. Usual visiting hours are Sunday 12 to 6. Special consideration may allow visiting for other times. Residents also sign a clothing release. I know. So this is from 1990. This is infuriating. Have you ever seen this? Because none of us should have been here. This place should have been shut down. Like, it's infuriating because it makes me so mad. Residents are supplied with certain articles upon admission. There are recorded in the intake needs. For the most part, the admission procedures found in the description are not followed. There is no evidence of a mental status evaluation. The chemical dependency and treatment history is sparse and does not provide enough information for an accurate evaluation. There is no evidence of a complete physical examination with necessary tests. Blank, resident, they did. Yeah, I don't know at this point, but they did. Resident admitted from another facility came with a blank. It's redacted, complete with redaction. The resident was redacted. After the admission to the family, the resident was, and then it's all redacted. What was being attempted as a complete multidisciplinary evaluation is not consolidated into one record. Academic records, including tests, are kept separate from the individual case record. There is no documentation indicating that evaluations are multidisciplinary, but isn't that what you were for? It's strange. So strange. Treatment plans were not individualized or comprehensive, and for the most part contained limited generalized goals. There was no evidence that the treatment plans were reviewed by multidisciplinary staff. There was no evidence that treatment plans were prepared in consultation with the resident, his or her parent or guardian or significant other. Treatment plans identified only generalized goals. Treatment plans did not prescribe an integrated program of therapies, activities, and experiences. Well, because then they would have failed them all, right? Treatment plans did not prescribe schedules for provision of all services and or review of the plan. Treatment plans did not include preliminary discharge planning. There were no evidence that treatment plans were being updated monthly by a primary counselor and reviewed by the supervisor and multidisciplinary team at least quarterly. There was no evidence of a diagnosis of alcohol dependence. Well, because then they'd be in trouble, right? Because they didn't have a certification. There is no evidence that any other conditions required by this standard. This is like, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. There was no evidence that at least 14 hours per week of formal professionally directed group and individual counseling was being provided to each resident, because it wasn't. There was no evidence of routine medical and nursing services being provided as appropriate. There was no evidence of social services. We didn't have access to social services. And I had mono, and they took me to an outside doctor. Maybe I was sick with high fevers for like 3 days before I got outside care. There was no evidence that counseling services provided for family members with or without the residents were provided appropriately by qualified staff. So that's because, right, there was none. There was none. There was no evidence that the required support services were being made available. Evidence of group and individual counseling is sparse and sporadic. That's factual. The program lacked orientation, advice, and instruction on obtaining needed community services including, Kathy was, so was Susan. Susan was as well. Although this is from 1990. Although the facility, had certain practices in place regarding the health of residents, the practices did not reflect the policies and procedure which should be in place according to standards. At most, the practices were in compliance with this section. Discharge plans were for the most part minimal, containing the date. Right, it's crazy. Place of destination and a note about continuing in self-help groups. There is no evidence that plans were prepared in consultation with the resident, his or her parent or parents or guardian or significant other. There was no evidence of preliminary discharge planning. The program lacked the required discharge policies. So I don't know about you, Justin. I don't know if Casey's still here, but did you, I spiraled when I left that place. I had such a hard time acclimating to, you're in this weird place in your mind, right? Because what you just witnessed was some fucked up shit, right? But at the same time, you're trying, you have to deprogram yourself as you acclimate. You got to remember, at least for me, I was away for 18 months, shut off from the outside world. No, I couldn't. The only person that I spoke to was my mom and my dad. I had no access to friends. We couldn't, when we were there, we didn't have do you remember we used to do movies on Friday night and we'd have the candy machine, but then that ended soon after I got there. Right. So I had a really hard time getting back into society, right? And when I walked, my mom wouldn't take me home because my mom didn't believe that this school was so fucked up. Carolyn's deleted comments. I'm working on getting one because I think that none of them should have licenses. That's just my opinion. There are certainly did he report it? No. The reports are also here. There was a FOIA filed. I haven't even gotten to that yet. I'm still on the fucking 1990 report. There was no documentation of the implementation of any utilization reviews process. This is about staff. Hold on. Robin Ducey. I really hope that woman's having a hard time in hell. I'll just say that, right? She was the principal. She was also my family leader for the first, I don't know, maybe year that I was there. The program lacked a full-time program director who is qualified health professional or a qualified substance abuse program director. The program lacked a licensed professional nurse. The program has one qualified counselor on site. So this must be before Susan came. Yeah. So bridge students was students that were they were still at the family, but they had finished school. Like they graduated. I'm sorry, I lost it. The program has one qualified counselor on site for 30 hours a week and another qualified counselor for 3 hours a week. Effectively, there are no counselors present for most of a weekend and evenings and nights. I'm sorry. No, he did not. 3 counselors shared a caseload of 28 residents. 2 of the counselors were not qualified and not full-time. At least 5 qualified counselors are required. There were no additional counselors beyond the 3 above. There was no evidence that any of the counselors had the required experience in family therapy or working with problems of families. The program lacked a certified physical education teacher or qualified professional in recreational therapy. The program lacked a licensed certified social worker. Oh, maybe that's why they brought Susan on. The program lacked a supervising physician appropriately licensed and qualified. Since the facility lacks the required number of direct care staff, 1/3 of all direct care staff hours are not being provided by qualified professional staff. At most, there was one FTE staff qualified professionals. There was no evidence that at least 2 care staff were awake and on duty at night, nor that they were arrangements for counseling and medical staff to be available 24 hours a day. The residence manager was not a qualified health professional. There was no evidence that in-service training programs for staff had been developed and implemented. There were 19 beds utilized by adult residents. There were no staff assigned specifically to this population. There were no counseling staff assigned specifically to this population. That's really saying the same thing. The program does not maintain an individual record for each youth admitted to the program. 3 distinct records are maintained: individual, academic, and family. Records lack the following: pre-admission evaluations, results of physical examination and laboratory tests, treatment plans which were individualized with appropriate amendments. There was a lack of evidence for serious problems described in evaluations were being incorporated into treatment plans and treated on an ongoing basis. This is redacted. There was no evidence that any of these problems were being treated in any way. That's more like it. That seems more like it. Regular notes on counseling sessions and weekly reports on progress, documentation of general health care recommendations and services provided, evidence of treatment plan review, adequate discharge plan with a statement of reasons for discharge. Recovery plans were not individualized, and there was no evidence that they were prepared with the cooperation of residents. Generalized goals were utilized without application of the services and activities of staff and the residents, which would enable the attainment of said goals. There was no evidence that plans were reviewed by staff and the resident at least monthly and reviewed as necessary. Information from referral sources at times was minimal and often did not exist. Often, information developed by staff was not sufficient to show that admission criteria had been met. Strengths and weaknesses were not elaborated in sufficient detail to develop and implement an individual recovery plan. As a result, recovery plans were not individualized. Documentation of the plan's implementation and periodic review and revision was minimal. Imagine that. Periodic notes was sparse, and due to the nature of the recovery plan, did not record residents' progress and achievement of goals and objectives in the plan. There was no record of any medication or name of prescribing physician. So they also, people that are really culty with AA and NA, they consider like ADHD medication to be a mind-altering substance, right? So students that had been on Ativan, Ritalin, Xanax, all of our medications, they were taken off. This is just about the buildings. Hold on a second. Structural capabilities. Sorry, I'm trying to get to like the important shit. I don't want to waste the time. So that concludes that report. This is January 3rd of 1990. January 3rd of 1990, right? Justin, what years were you there? You were there when I got there, right? I feel like you were there when I got there. So like, that's just madness. Right. So this is the thing. Carolyn's deleted comments. When I was there, if you were restrained, they videotaped it, right? I really want to know where those videotapes are, right? All right. So this is dated July 8th of 1988. It is to Thomas Hogan, who was the supervisor of like private schools in New York, right? Dear Mr. Hogan, pursuant to our conversation earlier this week, I am writing this letter as a follow-up at your suggestion. It is my hope that your office will re-examine the policies and procedures of the family school in Hancock, New York, as well as pass this information to the state liaison you spoke about. Over the past few months, this office has received several law enforcement referrals from the New York State Central Registry for Child Abuse, alleging assaults on students at the family through the use of duct tape and blankets to restrain these students and compliance. This practice, as in the school's policy and procedures, and was reviewed by your staff according to the director at the school. The school's administration uses that as fact as their defense to the allegation. The dilemma here is evident, in that one state agency is considering this practice a crime, while your office has approved their charter after a review of their policies and procedures. Charter would be the school. I suggest that your office re-examine these policies and procedures, and both agencies consolidate and solidify their opinions on this matter. I am aware that this review may take a considerable amount of time, but I do not have this luxury and will be taking action shortly. And it's from a deputy sheriff. This is from September 14th, 1998. Regarding state of New Jersey, in the interest of, I'll leave the student's name out, Honorable Judge blank, pursuant to the request of your chambers, I was finally able to contact my client on Monday. It's redacted. For an interview regarding his treatment at the Family Foundation School in Hancock, New York, a school he attended for blank months beginning in 1998. He advised me that there were a number of incidents he thought significant. Approximately 7 to 10 days after he arrived at the school, he was punished for his refusal to speak in front of his family group of 40 peers. He was in family 2. All right, so at that time, it would have been Roxy and Mike Lisico would have been in charge of family 2. Or was it Bob and Susan? It might have been Bob and Susan, actually. His punishment consisted of having his hands duct taped to his body and his legs duct taped together at the ankles and the knees. A heavy wool blanket was then placed over him, and that was to duct tape. He was kept in that condition on the floor of an isolation room for 24 hours. He was forced to urinate on himself, as there were no bathroom privileges. He was fed water, peanut butter, and jelly. 2 staff members, blank and blank, last name unknown, I'm trying to see through it, but I can't, were assigned to monitor him. He advises me that although it is the policy of the school to videotape all duct taping, he was never videotaped. God damn. Okay, hold on. His second major incident occurred after he had been there approximately 1 month. He had refused to do a work chore, and his sanction was to again be duct tape in the same exact manner as before. This time, however, he was left in this position for 4 days. being forced to defecate and urinate on himself. He indicated that while no videotaping was done, he was again monitored by staff members. I can't see it. I can't see the names. On yet another occasion, he was again given a work sanction. Two workers put a vacuum cleaner, hold on, I'm trying to get this right, put a vacuum cleaner in his hands and dragged him around a room, at times his feet being completely off the floor, and at other times his feet simply being dragged while his body was being held on either side. During this incident, he was accidentally elbowed in the face, causing a bloody nose. Everyone who witnessed this was laughing. During this time, he was videotaped by staff member blank, who also offered him dog biscuits, placing them in his face while everyone else laughed. I'd like to see the unredacted version of this. At other times, for minor infractions, he would be grabbed by his feet and dragged around the floor while his back was on the floor while others laughed. On another occasion, he was locked in the garbage shack as a work sanction and was not let out for a short period of time. Due to the policies of his new school, oh God, he went to Elon. This telephone conference took place on a speakerphone in the presence of a social worker and a peer member identified only to me as blank. This letter was faxed to blank Monday, and it was our agreement that he would review this letter. And if it contained any inaccuracy due to my notes taking or due to the differences in his recollection, he would contact me immediately. This is now 8/10/2010. It is a letter to the Director, Office Quality Management. Dear blah, blah, blah. This responds to yours of September 8th, 2010. First, we thank you for your interest in our school and our program, and we hope with each of you and your staffs to satisfy all reasonable concern. Second, we are gratified that your staff did not find evidence of abuse or neglect, as our program is dedicated to valuing each student entrusted in our care. Fuck you. Physical or mental abuse to our calling in our program. Second, we note our strong disagreement with your statement that an effort to ensure consistent and steadfast implementation of our philosophy was redoubled during the last year, somehow related to our accreditation. Instead, we have long modeled our program on best practices. As those have evolved, so have our methods. To correct an error, in fact, your letter, the FFS culture, has been actively and consistently evolving in the last 2 decades. In 1986 to 87, we registered with the New York State Department of Education as a non-public school, and in 1990, meeting SED standards, FFS received our absolute charter. FFS became a member of the NATSAP. Right, it's crazy. Adapting their established set of ethical and operational guidelines. In the 1990s, FFS gained accreditation from Middle States Association of Colleges and Schools. Beginning in 2000, FFS adopted Cornell University's therapeutic crisis intervention protocols for de-escalation and restraint. In 2008, FFS received accreditation from the Joint Commission. Last year, FFS successfully recredited with MSA. Third, no senior staff considered our methods harsh. Well, that's strange because in Paul's deposition, he says that perhaps he acted badly. Perhaps he behaved badly, right? Maybe some things that he took part in weren't appropriate. Instead, as set forth above, we have opened our doors to numerous outside agencies and have followed research-based protocols for dealing with often incorrigible and oppositional adolescents who have failed to thrive before coming to our school. Fourth, the predicate for much of your letter is a misapprehension of our school. We are not a therapeutic residential facility because you didn't get the accreditation, right? We are a boarding school which attracts and assists, among others, a subset of students who act out in ways that present specific challenges. Our intent is to assist these students access and succeed in a regions-based curriculum. This cannot be done without effectively addressing behavioral and emotional issues. But isn't that weird? Because when we were put on sanctions, we were pulled from classes, right? we didn't go to classes when you were addressing our alleged behavioral and emotional issues. We turn next to the specific headings set forth in yours. Environment. This is going to piss me off. As we explained, we are committed to expanding the standalone dorm space at our facility, because they did build a dorm, but we did have trailers, as a stopgap measure for 20 fucking years. We have employed trailers which have been inspected by local building officials. We agree that the trailers should not have been used in an overcrowded or dangerous manner, and have taken suggested steps to reduce the student occupancy. I don't think you had a choice. We have ended the practice of landlocking students and instead are employing additional trained staff to provide safety and security for our students during the overnight hours. Ladders are not necessary for students to access top bunks, and we have discerned no need for them in our dorms or trailers. We have secured the bunk beds as recommended, because they weren't secure then. We have redoubled our efforts to ensure that each student has his or her towels. Imagine that. Right. I remember that. Do you have the same thing where, like, you don't remember, like, day to day, like, you don't remember the day to day things, but, like, I can remember, like, important instances. You know what I'm saying? As you suggested, we have requested a special inspection of all campus buildings to ensure compliance with applicable codes and regulations. I'll skip that. We have addressed the hanging electrical cords that will ensure that this is not a problem that's repeated. To ensure that capacity and communicate effectively. Yeah, right. I think it's like a trauma response. I'm not really sure. Quickly in any emergency. And in August 2010, we made radios available to student dorm leaders. With these, they can communicate with campus security. Oh, they had security? Likewise, we have redoubled our efforts to ensure that no unsafe or dangerous substances are stored in the dorm. As you noted, our staff immediately addressed the discovery of an unlabeled cleaning solution in the dorm. We never had labels on the cleaning solution. As noted above, we are committed, this says staffing concerns. As noted above, we are committed to increasing the presence of staff in the dorm areas and at night during the overnights. While we do not agree that the current system has failed or is wholly sufficient, we do feel that the staff responsible for security should go as tasked and solely is tasked. Students who have been, in quotes, it says, called upon to stay up during the overnight hours to monitor, interact with peers in the timeout quiet room. Students who have advanced in our program have been given the opportunity to constructively interact with their peers. What a nice way of saying that. However, no student has ever been coerced to play any such rule. Are you sure about that? I remember students that would be watching me in isolation bitching because they had to do overnights. Are you sure? This seems like a whole bunch of bullshit. We also disagree. Of course you disagree. Why can't y'all take fucking accountability for anything? We also disagree with your conclusion that our staff have placed students in a position. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Really? We also disagree with your conclusion that our staff have placed students in a position of exercising judgment while engaging in peer counseling. You said what? You said what? They can't believe that this is real, right? Because that would be super concerning, right? Like, if you actually believe that this is the case, I think you're way far gone. Right. You want me to read it again? It says, we also disagree with your conclusion that our staff have placed students in a position of exercising judgment while engaging in peer counseling. Table topics. That's a joke. Regardless, and perhaps more critically, we no longer use the timeout quiet room and have desisted in its use for several months. We entered into a group. When did you do this? After the student killed himself, right? Where you neglected to bring him to the higher level of care that he was fucking begging for. We entered into an agreement with Lourdes Hospital, which assigned Dr. Berg, who has a medical office in Hancock, New York, to conduct medical assessments of our students to provide medical backup to our nursing staff. This staff provides ongoing care with the charted instructions of Dr. Berg for each student under their care. Dr. Berg does not write performance evaluations or provide moment-to-moment supervision of the nurses on staff. We do not believe any state regulation requires us to have an available on-site physician, and we do believe the collaborative process we have had in place satisfactorily serves our students and complies with applicable regulations. Restraint and seclusion. As noted above, we have concluded that the best practice is to close the timeout room and utilize additional staff support to address behavioral issues which might have otherwise triggered this intervention. Accordingly, our current and projected use of this intervention does not implicate the concerns raised and discussed at some length in your letter. We have we have used a log to record any, good. So that should be like accessible, right? We have long used a log to record any physical injuries or whatever origin, hold on, sustained by a Family Foundation student. Papa. They just bark they've known my sister her entire life and they still bark at her. It's crazy, right? I don't know about yet. Hold on a second. Clinical services. Non-credentialed staff members do not provide psychotherapy to students and their families. The enclosed document sets forth I read that wrong. Clinical services provided at FFS and explains how appropriately trained providers implement these services. We also reject your contention that non-qualified staff are sometimes in the position of making lethality assessments for students in a crisis. Is there anything that you guys agreed that you did in these letters? Because it seems to me that you're just denying it all, right? We're all liars. We had a bad experience. We're disgruntled. We're spoiled brats, right? Our practice is to delegate any such decision to qualified and credentialed staff. He's proud of his work there, Jenny. As noted above, FFS is not a residential treatment facility. It is a boarding school which is open to and provides comprehensive educational services for a wide range of students, including some who suffer from a range of developmental issues. While FFS does not prepare IEPs or treatment plans for each student, Dr. Vogel's attached explanation clarifies qualified staff develop a written assessment for each enrollee, which includes recommendations for educational approaches and management of distracting behavioral and emotional patterns. I think you distracted them, all right. Finally, your conclusion that a comprehensive psychiatric screening is not done before admission is true but irrelevant. Is it? Exeter does not do such screenings either. We are a private boarding school and are not required to do such screenings. We do have an extensive pre-admission screening process, which features both educators and clinically trained staff who can and do identify students with severe Axis 1 disorder. Typically, we do not admit these students and instead refer them for appropriate placements. I've never heard of that in my life. Our school does not provide DBT. It is based upon the 12-step model, which is compatible with CBT. Psychiatric services. We agree that Dr. Manley is a well-qualified professional who has performed his role at the school with distinction. He started working in our school in January of 2009. He's also named civilly, by the way, when his certification was current and his oversight caused the lapse to which you refer. As that lapse has now been corrected, we are pleased to continue his excellent services. Medication practices. Our policy on medication distribution and errors was in the process of revision when you visited. Isn't that fucking coincidental? Relying on the account abilities built into it, we have experienced improvement and expect to rectify the error rate your reviewers noted. We are also in dialogue with Lourdes Hospital and Dr. Berg's office to provide additional review services. Sanctions. We disagree with any conclusion that it is overly restrictive or burdensome. Our sanctions policy certainly requires that our students face consequences for their failure to adhere to the rules and program ideals. So, like when you made me cut my hair, right? What was that? Like what was that supposed to enforce? You know, I really want to know. We are. Sorry. FFS success in working with these students derives from its ability to individualize its approach and by accommodating for such needs. However, we are now adding additional safeguards as requested to ensure that students' individual needs are accounted for in the application of consequences. Education. Passing grade for our courses and exams remain 75. We will allow students to take Regents exams so long as they have attained a grade of at least 65 in their related FFS coursework. This will ensure, this letter was written by Mike Argyros, by the way. We know of no contrary state regulation or rule. We agree reports of abuse and neglect. We agree that independent review of any abuse or neglect complaint should be what? Hold on. Right. Some of us, I left at 18, instituted. To this end, we are reaffirming our willingness to fully cooperate with the Delaware County DSS as it investigates any such complaints. Students will be permitted to make timely reports. So this was a frequent problem, right? Because this kept coming up in our investigations because there was never a system where we could report, like even prisons have grievances, right? There was never a reporting system that we would be able to report, right? Oh, God. We welcome further interaction with your staff, though we emphasize that we are not a residential treatment facility and will resist efforts to equate our purposes, goals, and methods with those used at such facilities. Our exceptional track record stands as a testament to the devotion of our staff to treat each student with dignity and respect. And we intend to continue to uphold those values as we educate the next generation. What? This is also a notice that was sent October 13th, 1998 from the State Department. Attached is a copy of a September 24th, 1998 letter we have received from New Jersey Juvenile Court Judge Patrick Blank, Commissioner of the New York State Office of Children and Family Services concerning the Family Foundation School. Also attached is the copy of September 14th, 1998 Judge Roma received from Hackensack, New Jersey, attorney blank, that his client was abused and neglected while a student at the Family Foundation School. Pursuant to our discussion this afternoon, we will appreciate receiving your written response to each allegation within 1 week. In addition, since I know from several conversations that we've had in recent months that your staff has been reviewing constraint policies and procedures from other organizations that also deal with teenagers who are sometimes out of control, that some changes are underway. It would be extremely helpful if you could address this in details in your response as well. This September 24th, 1998. Dear Commissioner Johnson, I am writing in regard to the name who was sent to the Family Foundation School. He attended the school for blank months beginning in 1998. Through his attorney, he informed me in the attached letter that there were a number of allegations which, if might true, amount to institutional abuse and neglect. I'm very concerned about these charges, and as the juvenile court judge, it is my duty to follow through and have them investigated. Because of these alleged incidents, I will not place any juveniles in this school in the future. That was in 1998. October 19th, 1998. Dr. Alan Pohl, District Superintendent of BOCES. Dear Alan, thank you very much in participating in the visit to the Family Foundation School last week. We appreciate you bringing Ms. Janet Strain, Director of Special Education. I have reported to Deputy Commissioner that she has an excellent background and that she was of most valuable addition to the team. As promised, attached is a draft report. I would appreciate receiving any suggestions you have for additions, deletions, and rephasing. This is from Thomas Hogan, right? So that was 1998, right? So this it's maddening. It truly is absolutely fucking insane. Is this the one I just read? No. Okay, so September 8th, 2010. Dear Mr. Argyros, on June 10th and June 11th, 2010, the New York State Commission of Quality of Care and Advocacy for Persons with Disabilities, the New York State Education Department, New York State Office of Mental Health, and New York State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse conducted an unannounced visit to your school. This is the one that I posted about earlier. The reason for this visit was to investigate a number of complaints brought to the Commission's attention involving students between 14 and 19 years of age. While on site, state agency staff interviewed approximately 60 students, staff, and administrators, toured the entire campus, and reviewed relevant policies and procedures. We also reviewed a number of clinical records. The Commission and other state agencies appreciated the reception and full access to the facility students and staff afforded to us during our visit. This letter serves to notify you of the Commission and our state partners' findings and recommendations stemming from the June visit. The SED will be responding under separate cover. Allegations of abuse and neglect. Although allegations were brought to our attention that students were being physically abused and neglected, interviews we conducted did not suggest students were being physically abused or neglected at the time of visit. Many of the students interviewed reported positive experiences with the school and were appreciative of the staff's effort. There was no acknowledgement by the Family Foundation administrators that there had been a previous culture of harsh treatment at the facility. The Family Foundation School has been working to change this culture and has instituted a number of policies, practices, and staffing changes to remove all of this previous culture. The administrators reported that these efforts increased rapidly following the Joint Commission visit over a year ago. Notwithstanding the above noted findings, the Commission and state partners found some concern in a number of areas which are discussed below. Environment. While on site, we toured the entire campus and appreciated the well-maintained grounds. Yeah, because the students are being forced to do it, right? And educational centers. Most other program areas on the campus appear to be in good repair and adequate to meet the needs of each student. However, our tour of dorms and trailers revealed a number of concerns which are listed below, along with recommendations for remediation. There are as many as 14 students, which I remember it being more, assigned to sleep in each of the several trailers on the campus at the time of our visit. The Commission and state partners have concerns regarding overcrowded in the trailers, lack of space between furniture, and partially blocked emergency evacuation routes. There were similar concerns identified in the dormitories. The school was unable, let me zoom in, hold on. The school was unable to provide a current certificate of occupancy specific to the dormitory or the trailers. And as the state building code compliance is not an area of my expertise, we have asked New York State Department of State to access the adequacy of these accommodations in light of any applicable state building code or other requirement. It is our understanding that a number of issues are currently being addressed by state and local building codes officials. Imagine that. We commend your staff for moving several bunk beds that were in front of emergency exits. The furniture was rearranged to provide a safer evacuation route in case of emergency. You confirmed in a June 18th conference call that only 2 trailers remain in use as housing units at this time. We would appreciate a notification if other trailers are opened. The Commission and state partners have concerns related to the practices of landlocking students, as this creates a health and safety risk. As we understand the practice, students may be at risk of running away or other behavioral risk are placed nearest the wall of a trailer or dormitory. Bunk beds used by other students are moved closer to risk the student. It serves as like a barrier so that they can't get out. This could create a safety risk in case of an emergency evacuation, such as a fire. We also question who is making the assessment that landlocking is appropriate, as well as the criteria applied. It is not appropriate for students to be assigned to carry out and enforce the landlocking practice. Students were tasked with carrying out and enforcing everything. Upper bunk beds throughout the dorm lack ladders. Yeah, we had to hop up. We recommend that ladders be utilized for the upper bunk beds to assist students when entering and leaving their bunk. The absence of such may cause an unnecessary risk of case emergency. Several towels were not labeled. Students were sharing towels, which could possibly, that's hygiene issue. Electrical extension cords were observed hanging from bunks and drapes on top of bedding. This presents other safety hazards and should be addressed. Yeah, it's crazy. Restraint and seclusion. At the time of our visit, FFS utilized 2 rooms that were both in timeout. So they did make timeout rooms way after I left. They are located off the gym in a small hallway. Several inconsistent descriptions of the uses of the rooms were elicited by administrators. You don't say. You mean they didn't tell you exactly what those rooms were for? Imagine that. Staff members and students. Administrative staff described the quiet room as a place used on a voluntary basis. Right, sure. Other staff members and students described the use much differently and indicated that staff does, in fact, direct students to the timeout quiet room. Several students perceived the use of the timeout room as a directive in which they were required to comply, because it was, okay. And state partners appreciates your decision to limit the approval for the use of the timeout to administrative staff as a step toward revising your policy on the use of the rooms and encourage further consideration of modifying your existing facility to include a comfort room as an option for students. This is wild. Yeah, exactly. That's like in the Jan deposition, it said that we could decline table topics. I was like, what? Where'd they do that at? Yeah.
So, New Jersey Family Cares, me and him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about to end. So
I told him.
Yeah.
I told him the same thing I told you.
Yeah.
Despite the policy decision noted above, students reported being in the timeout quiet room for hours at a time with an occasional report of overnight and multi-day use. Interviews with staff confirmed these practices. The FFS use of timeout exceeds acceptable New York state and federal guidelines and arguably constitutes aversive intervention practices in some instances. So you'd be really upset to find out that we were wrapped in blankets and duct tape, right? We are requesting FFS practices be revised to comply with federal and state guidelines. The Commission and state partners remain concerned about the broad latitude which FFS has given to non-credentialed and unlicensed personnel to make decisions regarding the use of timeout rooms, particularly given the profiles of students with serious emotional and psychiatric conditions at the school. While you have advised that recent changes have been made to restrict the ability to direct the use of the rooms to certain professional staff, we believe that as a best practice, a more formalized protocol would be appropriate. Accordingly, we recommend that a behavioral intervention plan be developed for any student identified as having a serious behavioral problem, that qualified mental health professionals be consulted in the development of the plan, and that any utilization of the timeout or quiet room for that student be consistent with the behavioral interventional plan. We refer you to relevant SED regulations, which address behavioral intervention plans and use of your timeout, and for guidance to the critical components of such a behavioral intervention plan, as well as policies and procedures which should be applied to the use of the room. Our investigation revealed that there are few records kept in regard to use of, oh, you don't say. Imagine that. To use of the quiet room. We recommend that records be kept indicating who ordered the timeout room, why, what student was involved, how long it lasted, who monitored the student, and how the situation was resolved to reflect a minimum standard for tracking this intervention. As a best practice, where there is any indication that a student may have sustained a physical injury resulting from an intervention, that student should have a physical examination conducted by a school nurse or other qualified medical professional, which is documented by the individual conducting the examination. Oh, of course not. We also encourage FFS to review the appropriateness for utilizing face down or prone restraints in your facility. The utilization of prone restraints presents a greater risk for the youth of positional asphyxia, a potentially deadly outcome to physically intervening with youth. The Family Foundation School should ensure that all personnel who may need to be involved in a restraint are appropriately trained and up to date in their refreshers. Please provide an updated roster of staff and their training statuses. Again, we strongly encourage discontinuing prone restraints and favor training and implementation of supine restraints. Students interviewed indicated that some had taken part in providing emergency assistance, including restraining other students. They described taking down peers in distress as well as holding another student's legs until staff respond. Yeah, facts. This exceeds the appropriate role for students in the school. Staff members who have been properly trained should be the only personnel authorized to intervene. Clinical services. The Commission and state partners learned that non-credentialed staff members are providing psychotherapy and other clinical services legally reserved and restricted to SED licensed practitioners in New York State. Non-qualified staff members are sometimes in the position of making lethality assessments for students in crisis. Only licensed and credentialed staff should be making these assessments. We will be referring these issues to the SED Office of Professions for a review. According to Dr. Vogel's estimate, 90% of the students experienced histories of mental health and/or substance abuse disorders. Many students require multiple forms of supportive care in addition to the modified 12-step program that you provide. Students in crisis were provided services, but we could not identify a consistent individualized treatment approach from a mental health or substance use perspective documented in most students' records reviewed. We are requesting a complete mental health profile of the students in your school, including the names, ages, and current diagnoses. We would also appreciate any previous mental health, and or substance histories of students placed at the FFS in order to better understand the clinical challenges presented by your student population. It appears that there is no protocol to ensure that comprehensive psychiatric screenings are conducted prior to admission. This would permit the school to ensure that adequate clinical services and supports are in place at admission. If the school admits students with serious mental health and/or substance abuse issues through an assessment, an appropriate treatment plan should be developed. The Commission of State Partners recommends a review of your program literature and website to remove references to services you are not currently providing. For example, we saw no evidence that DBT or CBT were being provided, although the services are referenced on your website. Imagine that. We believe that these interventions could be very helpful, provided that they are implemented by appropriately trained and credentialed staff. There are no logs. That's what, right, they came from Eastridge. Dr. Vogel informed us that the clinical department was being reconfigured as of July 1st, 2010. We would like a copy of the policy changes that were implemented. We also recommend a review and revision of your program literature and website to ensure compliance with Mental Hygiene Law 32-05. which prohibits facilities from advertising to the public the availability of chemical dependence treatment services unless operation certificate has been obtained. Okay. Psychiatric services. Psychiatric care provided to the children with formal diagnoses was similar to that provided on an outpatient basis. We noted that children are typically seen monthly. I don't recall seeing one at all, but may have been seen more frequently if they are having difficulties or undergoing medication adjustments. Psychopharmacological management appeared appropriate, and the medication regimens were consistent with the students' diagnoses. Progress notes written by the school's psychologist, Dr. Manley, reflect his sensitivity to the students and or their parents' concerns, and we found evidence that he is usually willing to consider adjustments to prescribe medication when the student or parent makes a reasonable request. Dr. Manley's notes were thorough, but he did not consistently document an assessment of side effects. There were often references to the student's response to the medication changes, including the absence of any adverse effects, but the documentation was inconsistent. Dr. Manley allowed his registration with the SED to lapse for the period January 1st until he re-registered on April 29th. The commission would appreciate an explanation as to why he was invited to practice at the school without holding a current registration during this time period. Medication practices. We noted numerous documentation errors in the sample of the MAR reviewed. For example, there was circles, and then in parentheses, it says usually used to denote a missed dose without an explanation. The usual procedure is to note what happened on the back of the MAR, e.g. refused. There were also blanks without an explanation. Our review found that there is a notebook with forms for documenting medication errors. The forms are to be completed when an error is discovered. However, follow-up is inconsistently documented. In addition, it appears that there is no mechanism or procedure in place to address medication errors in a systemic manner. These tasks are typically the responsibility of a registered nurse. Please provide us a copy of the school's policy on medication errors. Sanctions. Take a link. We received numerous complaints around the length, duration, and assignment of some work sanctions during our interviews with students. While it appears that FFS has significantly modified this aspect of its programming, we are concerned that this intervention is sometimes excessive. You think? What gave you that idea? Please share your written policy and staff guidance materials that help determine how work sanctions are implemented and reviewed. In addition, FFS employs a number of sanctions that are utilized for overt and perceived violation of the rules, which would not be allowed and could be considered harmful in licensed mental hygiene programs for individuals with significant histories of trauma and mental illness. We would greatly appreciate a copy of your policy on this practice, including how it is monitored to ensure that emotionally fragile students are not harmed by this intervention. Further, in our discussions with students, we became concerned that table topics can sometimes be utilized in a manner that may compromise the mental health problems of some of your students. We would appreciate a current copy of your policy on this procedure, including safeguards designed to ensure these interventions are not emotionally damaging. Justin, I don't know about you, but did you ever have an emotionally damaging table topic? This is like fucking laughable. Education. Through interviews with staff and students, we learned that students who are otherwise eligible to take New York State Regents exams but do not score 75 on a pretest are not permitted to take the Regents. Fact. We had to get an average. We took qualifiers. They were called qualifiers, and we had to score above. We took 3 tests, and the average we had to score above the average of 75 of those tests to take the Regents. This practice does not appear to be readily discernible or transparent for those prospective students who apply to the school. We suggest that a better and more progressive and affirming practice would provide that without precondition, all students who have taken the course and are eligible to take the exam should be allowed to take the test. You are treated better in prison. That's a fact. Reports of abuse and neglect. It is the commissioner's understanding that this school does not have a system that reviews complaints of abuse and neglect. We recommend that a system be put into place which incorporates timely, competent, independent review of any such allegation together with administrative oversight or that review process. We also believe that students should have the right to make a phone call to report allegations of abuse or neglect to anyone of their choosing or another student, of their choosing if they believe that they or another student are at imminent risk or harm of the situation cannot be resolved to their satisfaction. The Commission and state partners are requesting that you review the content of this letter and consider policy, practice, and staffing changes that will address our shared concerns. We would appreciate a written response to the concerns identified by October 8th, 2010. In the meantime, if you have any questions or concerns, you can email there's a name. Under Article 6 of the Public Officers Law, final agency determinations are required to be available for public inspection. This letter will be deemed a final agency determination 30 days after the date of this letter, which affords you an opportunity to respond to our findings prior to any disclosure pursuant by the Public Officers Law. Material which is required to be kept confidential or which is protected from disclosure under the public, essentially saying that they have to. So the letter that I read before from Mike was that's his response to this. This is infuriating. I'm just letting you know. January 31st, 2011. This responds to yours dated December 29th to the Family Foundation School. Your response credits to our administration for its demonstrated willingness to express your concerns, but we believe still unfairly portrays our school's mission and program. For that reason, we respectfully request that you publish this response with your letter. Number 1, your statement that past practices, in quotations, at least arguably constituted abuse or neglect, is a serious distortion of our record. Is it? God, Mike. Contrary to your claim, our modifications of past practice does not represent a concession that any prior practice was abusive or neglectful, nor has any agency ever concluded that we engaged in such practice. Indeed, to our collective knowledge, no such claim has ever been adjudicated in an adversarial setting. While we are aware that a tiny fraction, it's all of us. I've never heard a student not say there was abuse. Not once. Have complained to your several agencies. We reject their allegations and the internalization of their unproven claims in your report. 2, as critically as the substance of such unfounded complaints, your report apparently gives credence to allegations against FFS without any evidentiary process. As of today, we do not know what complaints you have received, their source, or any corroboration from them. In this light, your report should make no findings as to the credible nature of any such allegations, nor does the similarity of complaints establish their credibility. So it doesn't matter that we all have the same stories. That doesn't count as evidence. Like unattributed accounts have been part of the public record in various forms of the social network which pervade our culture. You hate social media, don't you? In this context, reliance on such reports is improper, particularly since your own staff did not witness any alleged abuse or neglect, because you made sure we didn't have access to it. You made sure that our parents didn't believe us when we told them that we were being abused. You're a fucking piece of shit. Number 3, as all agree, FFS has substantially altered practices and protocols since its opening. I can agree with that. Like any conscientious, evolving, and viable institution, FFS leadership and staff have always agreed that we learn from our collective experiences, and the feedback received with welcome from students and their parents. The suggestion that the catalyst for change were the Joint Commission visits is unfounded and revisionist. 4, we find oblique and unclear your further claim that we do not find clinical practices in your curriculum that would consider best practices. In our view, FFS provides the curriculum dictated by the New York State Board of Regents. Its delivery is tailored to our students who have generally succeeded while at FFS. What happens when they leave, Mike? What happens when we leave the family? FFS promotes itself as a therapeutic boarding school, not a traditional boarding school. This explicit recognition derives from our student population as much as it may determine students attracted to our program. Nobody's attracted to your program. Nobody. Our emphasis is education, not psychiatric care. But that's what you told our parents that we were getting, right? However, we have always recognized, indeed emphasized, the profound interconnection between the cognitive and affective domains. Our objective is to provide a conducive to assisting students overcome obstacles to learning. What? Many families choose FFS because you fucking lie to them. Because we explicitly recognize that student achievement cannot be viewed in isolation, but rather depends on accounting for and addressing obstacles to learning. Number 6, we are not a psychiatric treatment facility, and our advertisements make that clear. Do they? Do they really? This is crazy. This explicit recognition, I'm sorry, I skipped it. We are a school, albeit a school with a particular focus on assisting students who face obstacles in assessing education. Our approach entails the evaluations of students and their referral, if and when needed, for more intense psychiatric care. But that's not true, because that kid was telling you for 3 days that he was going to kill himself before he did it. We do not purport to provide inpatient psychiatric services, and nothing in FFS advertising suggests the contrary. Number 7, we moved 4 houses of boys from trailers into a dorm in 2004. On the day of your arrival, we were moving all the girls into a new dorm. As of this writing, no FFS student lives in a trailer. All students are accommodated in one of our 4 houses. Projected student enrollment may cause us to build a dormitory for about 25 students, a process which takes about 2 years. Number 8, the county building inspector did not provide a report following his July 2010 visit. We shall ask for this report and furnish it to your office. 9, we will install ladders. 10, your reference interviews in June 2010 preceded our clarification of student involvement with peers. We feel we have addressed that issue in a manner satisfactory to your concerns. Students in crisis are encouraged to go to the health office or to counseling, where they are attended to by staff. Peers who may accompany students in crisis, who are also evaluated by a team of family leaders, counseling, and their own counselor to assess their willingness and appropriateness of staying with a friend. We no longer operate a quiet room anywhere on campus. 11, we have used 2 restraints in the last 4 months, 1 supine, 1 prone. No injuries resulted. 12, Dr. Vogel's program description is herewith provided. Our policy on lethality is found under the heading Crisis in that document. 13, our admissions office does routinely request, receive, and thoroughly review all pertinent reports for prospective students we are considering. You guys took anybody. What do you even, what? This includes psychiatric reports. While not required pre-admissions, we encourage applicants to obtain comprehensive psychological evaluations. We intend to continue this practice. Our admissions director is an experienced credentialed therapist who carefully reviews all collected data and conducts extensive interviews. This is crazy. FFS educators are licensed professionals on our staff assist him. We do not typically admit students suffering severe Axis 1 disorders. In addition, post-enrollment, we promptly do a screening of all students for appropriateness. 14, FFS has had an extraordinary record of success. I'd like to know what that is now. I'd like to know. I wonder if there's a way to get that done, because I can't think of like maybe there's a handful of students that that went straight from the family and into like a productive life. But most of us struggled for a very long time. So I don't think that this statement is accurate. College attendance and other standard parameters. The 12-step program is internationally recognized and often has been replicated. It is being successfully used at FFS. 15, we have implemented a protocol with Lourdes Hospital by which an RN or physician provides medical direction to our LPNs by phone. We have also recently hired an RN on a part-time basis. Our medical director, a physician, has reviewed and approved operational procedures which ensure appropriate medical response in any acute circumstances. We provide and will continue to provide staff training to properly implement these protocols. We expect to enter into a written contract with Lourdes detailing the responsibilities of the medical director for staff supervision and policy review. We will forward that document to you when completed. 16, staff advised Dr. Manley of all incidents involving misuse of medication, including improper distribution by a student of medication. Students were giving out medications. Staff advised Dr. Manley of all incidents involving misuse of medication, including improper distribution by a student of medication. That's what that says, right? Beckett. Lying about symptoms to obtain medication or any like situation. That doesn't make sense. During the last 90 days, we've had 2 incidents involving misuse of medication. 17, senior school officials will continue to closely monitor for the appropriateness of sanctions. We retain autonomy to determine such sanctions. We note that public schools routinely suspend students for far more than a month. First of all, okay, I've never heard of a student being suspended from school for a month. I've never heard of that, okay? Oh my God. Justin, you ready for this? No student is made to work on the maintenance crew, though part of the FFS program assigns students to complete routine work in and around the school. Mind-blowing. That is mind-blowing. So you can't compare sanctions to school suspensions, right? You can't, there's no comparison there. 18, FFS does not withhold mail. Bullshit. Do you know how many letters? Phone calls may be shortened for students not current in their homework. Bullshit. Phone calls were withheld. Right? That's what I'm saying. Like, what the fuck? Like, phone calls were held. We were put on blackout with family. That was a frequent blackout. We were put on blackout, meaning we couldn't talk to them or receive letters at all. 19, we appreciate your understanding of the purpose of table topics and your respect for the integrity of our model. We will continue to exercise appropriate supervision. We have addressed your concerns in a frank, direct, and constructive manner. No, you fucking lied. Despite our that a tiny fraction of our alumni, here it comes, ready? This is what they tell. This is what they always say, right? This is what they have said for decades about us talking. that a tiny fraction of our alumni and others without direct experience at FFS were attempting to unduly influence your agencies. You motherfucker. You know that we told the truth. This is crazy. I'm trying to find the next one. I can't even like there's no way that they believe that this is how shit went, right? Like there's no way. There's just no way. Do you think that there's no way, right? They have to, they're not like not based in reality, right? Like they have to know. Oh, hold on, because the student that was here before, yes, yes. um, there's no way they have to know that that's not true, right? There's no way. Like I refuse to believe like that they really have this picture. I can't. Evie. All right, so this is crazy because this is a July 8th, which ironically is my dad's birthday, 1998. Dear Mr. Hogan, pursuant to our conversation earlier this week, I am writing this letter as a follow-up at your suggestion. It is my hope that your office will re-examine the policies and procedures at the Family Foundation School in Hancock, New York, as well as pass this information to the state. Over the past few months, the dilemma here is evident. One state agency, I read that part, it was included in another report. That's this. This is all the notices. Hold on. There's, I want to see the reports. Dang. Hold on, because I got to scroll through it. There's no way that they know this, right? Like, there's just no way that they see this the way we do, right? Like, it's just not possible. Why are they writing checks to the New York Education Department? Maybe for their license? And they never had, this is all their business documents. They never had an alcohol and drug. That's just wild to me because that's what a lot of our parents thought they were sending us there for. These are all the Department of State filings. I'm trying to go through to see if there's anything really relevant. Oh, no. Okay, you ready? 11/29/2011. It's an email. I wrote to you both well over 2 weeks ago regarding my concerns. It is to New York State Education. Oh, shit. Did I lose you? Oh, no. Okay, I got it. I'm sorry. I hit the button. This is hard to read, so I'm going to have to zoom in and out. About how your department, the New York State Education Department, has handled concerns about, Pee-Pee, how are you? Thank you. Over serious abuse allegations, neglect allegations, and care for youth that have been enrolled at the Family Foundation School over the last 20 years to present day. I have not yet heard back from either of you or a representative from your department. It's quite concerning. With the lack of urgency, it seems to be being taken by the Education Department to ensure proper protection for youth and at facilities that are registered as schools by your department. I am hoping that the absence of responses to my concerns by your department or due to action being taken to remove the Family Foundation School's accreditation and registration as a state licensed boarding school. And before as well, Sarah. If not, I am once again asking you to immediately investigate the matter and take firm and swift action against the Family Foundation School with the evidence your department has ignored for over 20 years. The alumni campaign that brought with the evidence your department, I'm sorry, this is really hard to read, so just bear with me. Hi, Crystal. If not, I am once again has ignored for over 20 years. The alumni campaign that brought the information to the state last year has already released on its website just a portion of the records that were obtained from the New York State Education through the Freedom of Information Act. The other documents are being withheld until we hear from your department. I state once again that the records that were obtained through the Freedom of Information Act strongly and timely prove a long-withstanding history of abuse, all which has been covered by the Education Department. I am hoping that your department can take the action that should have been taken on at least 3 separate occasions since 1990. The campaign will be taking the evidence, documents, investigations, and information the campaign has received to media and legal outlets in the near future if this is not resolved by the Education Department. Sometimes action only comes when pressure is applied, but I personally, along with the alumni-based Family Foundation School Truth Campaign, are still not in complete understanding how child abuse, child neglect, mental torture, and illegal and unethical practices can go on for so long without any governmental intervention, especially when the state is aware of the issues occurring. We hope that this will be resolved by your department so we do not have to go the other route, but the lack of response is making us think otherwise. We are the voices for those who never had a voice while imprisoned at the Family Foundation School. Many of the campaign members were there who never had a voice and were coerced into putting on a smile when visitors came to the school, further covering the abuse. This time, our voices will be heard. I wonder if this was written by John. I can't see. This is the time to make it right. This is the time to take action. This is the time for the Education Department to protect the youth. This is the time the Family Foundation School has no business working with youth. If just one incident, I'm sorry, this is like blurry. If there was just one incident, it's understandable that a corrective action be issued to resolve the problem. But the Family Foundation School has been and will continue to abuse, neglect, mistreat, coerce, and brainwash youth until someone comes in and puts an end to it. Since 1990, there were 3 official state investigations into abuse, neglect, mistreatment, and serious concerns with the operation at the FFS. FFS has been operating under a loophole in the New York State law that allows them to act as a school, even though they provide other services that they are not licensed or legally allowed to provide, i.e., substance abuse treatment services for youth with disability. The 1990 investigation by the Division of Alcoholism and Alcohol Abuse, DAAA, cited some of the same concerns that the Office of Mental Health cited in 2011 investigation. The same story goes for the 1998 investigation that was initiated after a New Jersey judge who sentenced the youth to go to the Family Foundation School discovered abusive and coercive tactics were being used by school officials. The previous investigation cited issues with the use of isolation chambers to protect potentially violent or defiant students from hurting themselves and others, and yet those same concerns were cited in 2010 investigation. Prior to 1990, the school was operating as a school but was not yet authorized by the New York State Education Department to do so, and the administration at the school was sent a letter that they needed to become an accredited high school. The day after, Thomas Hogan applied for the family, which would later become the Family Foundation School. After the 1990 investigation by DCAA and that agency sending a cease and desist order to the family, to stop operating and marketing themselves as a facility that can treat youth with substance abuse orders. Just for reference, I went there in 96, right? And they were sent a cease and desist in 1990 to stop doing that. Thomas Hogan, who was the director of non-public schools for New York State Education Board, basically told the DAAA they had no authority to get involved with the Family Foundation School because they were under his authority and not theirs. Needless to say, FFS website still shows that they market themselves as a facility to help youth with substance abuse issues, and they force every student to participate in AA meetings. The 1998 investigation found many serious issues, many of which were cited again in the 2010 investigation by the New York State Office of Mental Health, including the school's use of wrapping children in blankets and then duct taping them as a form of restraining a child. Although the 2010 investigation did not find they use those methods anymore, the 2010 investigation still found issues with the way that the school utilizes students to restrain and maintain an adult role over other students. In 2006, Thomas Hogan received another email from a parent who was concerned over how her child was being treated at the school. The New York State Education Department also had information prior to the 2010 investigation from a former student who recently left the school and was interviewed by investigators involved in the 2010 investigation. The interview with the former students corroborated the abusive conditions allegations that a group of volunteers and I presented to the Office of Mental Health and Commission for Quality Care of Youth and Disabilities. Our website has been active and live since April 2009 with over 70 testimonials from former students all saying the same thing, that the Family Foundation School uses abusive and coercive tactics on youth. It's still a mystery why Thomas Hogan retired from the New York State Department of Education within a week of the 2010 joint investigation, but anyone who sees all this information can do the math. The New York State Education Department is aware and has been aware since at least 1989 that there have been consistent and serious issues with the operations at the Family Foundation School. Thomas Hogan from the New York State SED clearly knew that there were issues. Oh, wait, how does this? This is for a different one. It just jumps. On April 22nd, this is to New York State Education Department. It's a Justice Center allegation. On April 22nd, a student called the Justice Center to report Mike Argyros blocked the student's exit from the room using his stomach. Stop. But beyond this unofficial restraint with this, which the student felt so uncomfortable about, the student alleged there is widespread corruption in the school, which should be looked into. It is not a public school, so I'm referring it to your office for whatever follow-up you feel necessary. The school was the Family Foundation School. This is from 2014. This I read already. Oh, wow. I really, like, Mike Argyros is a real fucking piece of shit, man. This is another one. 10/4/2013, an email to the State Department. I am writing to you to express my concerns regarding the Family Foundation School in Hancock, New York. Attached is a screenshot of their website page explaining who they are. They represent that they are a therapeutic boarding school helping to treat teens at risk who may have mental health or mental health diagnosis and or behavioral disorder. Based on my experience as a guardian ad litem and public defender with juvenile delinquents and children of dependency and neglect cases, this phrase, therapeutic boarding school, and the extended definition that the FFS provides, it sounds like a residential treatment facility. New York State Office of Mental Health defines residential treatment facilities as one which provides integrated mental health treatment to emotionally disturbed youth between the ages of 5 and 18. However, in New York, these types of facilities are voluntary, unlocked, and less restrictive than a psychiatric center. I raised this concern because my own nephew, blank, at the Family Foundation School was an honor student. It's redacted. In April 2013, I received a text from his mother. It's redacted. And his wife put on a 72-hour psychiatric hold after an incident and then moved him to Princeton House for a drug rehab program. Less than 10 days at Princeton House, they moved him into an unknown location, this is really hard to read, which after several weeks, my family and New Jersey Department of Children and Family Services determined was the Family Foundation School in Hancock, New York. In my discussions with blank and other family members, not blank, there have been allegations of threats of being thrown down the stairs, and physical and mental abuse have been directed toward blank in the past year and a half. Also, in text messages from blank to me on my birthday when he was at Princeton House, she expressed dissatisfaction that was blaming them for some of their problems. Now he is in a cushy situation at a drug rehab. There's a lot of this is redacted, but it's a mental health professional, obviously. I called several times while in New York. I emailed the school to get permission to visit prior to my coming to New York on June 17, 2013. I received an email response saying they received my inquiry, but nothing further. I called several times while in New York, left messages, received no response. I sent a certified letter to blank, which was signed for by blank on July 18, 2013. This letter contains a 4-page address sheet with our family addresses, phone numbers, etc. I received a very short letter asking him to let somebody in the family know that he was okay. I've received no answer other than the Postal Service certification receipt after an extensive inquiry. I have no information from any family member that he has contact with other than his parents. Wow. Usually, when a child is placed into a residential facility, other community resources have been exhausted. Most often, the child goes against the court system or through mental health before being placed at such a facility. Safeguards are in place, such as court supervision, a social worker, a probation officer, often guardian ad litem. In the present instance, there are no safeguards in place for blank. The other children placed at the Family Foundation School. I am deeply concerned with the school operating under a license obtained through the New York State Department of Education. Is actually operating as a prison or a psychiatric center for children whose parents can sidestep the normal, court or mental health systems because of monetary resources. Wow. Dude, this is crazy. These documents are crazy. Yeah, right. This is an email to Hogan. This is a response to your email this afternoon to officials at the Family Foundation School. There appears to be a misunderstanding, which we can hopefully clear up. This is in 2013. First of all, I am attaching a scan of a letter that evidently was received in the packet sent to you. My company was formally requested to facilitate the FFS effort to file a certificate of assumed name. That's the business stuff. I don't need that. Oh, this definitely has somebody's information in it. Hold on. I'm just mind blown. This is about their assumed name. So they went from the family to right. It's truly crazy that for years, right? It's been years. This is a C of O. Their fire inspection. But this is the thing, right? The problem that we have is that they own the town, right? Like, so we've always been up against the wall. You know what I'm saying? But I've never seen these documents before, but I am absolutely going to find a way. Why can't we sue the state? We should be able to sue them. This is madness. The fact that it was like that they knew and continued. Like, we had heard stories of like students that would leave and students that would leave and report, things. That's all in here. All the FOIA has everything here. All incident reports. But this is the admission packets. Hold on. There's 107 pages just in this file that I opened. There's so many more. It just seems crazy to me that they were able to continue this way. It's truly it's maddening. You're good. You're good. Oh, I'm sorry, Pippi. This is the inspection report for 1990. Like, why? I just feel like they all failed us. Like the whole situation is just like a failure. Like, all they did was ignore. It's crazy to me. I have a list of incident reports from their police department, right? So like, why did nobody, no, like, so it's either blatant disregard, right? Which could be the case in some of the situations, right? Like unsuspecting. But like, this is an incident report for 2013. Incident type, sex offense, inappropriate touching. What the fuck? Like, that's just crazy to me. They're all redacted. But like, this is just crazy that this was able to continue. And that's one of the things that really makes me, like, pisses me off about the things that she says is, yes, Paul Guerre has 6 counts in the indictment, right? But there are more. There are other victims. Those are the only ones that we were able to get to, right? Like, there are more. So you can't separate. You can't just say sex abuse when there is clearly, hi Randy, there is so much evidence, so much proof. Like, listen, we all live in all over the place. Like, we live everywhere. We're all over the place, right? How do we all tell the same stories? How? That's like statistically impossible. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's got to be a way that we have all this, right? So why can't we sue the family, the fucking state, the New York Education Department? Like, they knew, and they fucking ignored it. And they probably made that dude forcibly resign because he knew. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. But there's a bunch of incident reports here of different officers. It's crazy. Right. So that's really what I think is going on, to be completely honest. I really think that she's trying to talk to the staff, right? Because yeah, some of this stuff has been public for years, right? But now it is a total different. I'm working on it because I have somebody that has like 10 yearbooks. I did ask him to get me a master staff list because, as far as I'm concerned, none of them should hold, licenses. None of them. It's right. It's crazy. And I know, like, they own the movie theater in Hancock. They own the newspaper in Hancock. They own the inn in Hancock. Like, that's what their money, it's the money, right? That's exactly what it is. And I'm sure that the staff is worried, right? Because up until now, there was never a criminal investigation, right? And I'm sorry, but if you spoke to the feds a year ago, if you didn't give a recorded statement, the only reason why you're trying to open your mouth now is to fucking save face. there's so many police reports here. And they're all fucking sick. Like they're sick because they knew. And I didn't, like, I knew that all the staff knew, you know what I'm saying? Like that was all evident, but to know that like the whole fucking state knew, a judge in Jersey knew, you know what I mean? So everybody has dropped the ball in this situation, every single one of them. But here's a forcibly touching from 2013, right? So now you also got to figure the cops have their well, that's what it is, right? One of his neighbors had no idea because we were told. We were always, it was always us. We're the lawyer. It's a very small group of disgruntled students. No, that's not the case. Harassment, the charge is harassment. I don't know what this is from, though. Somebody harassing the family. They should be harassed as far as I'm concerned. I'm trying to read the report, but I'm struggling because it's, yeah, right? Received a possible harassment complaint from a dispatcher, Reed, of the Delaware County community. Reed informs that Christopher Maroney had contacted the sheriff's office and stated that someone was hacking his computer from the Family Foundation School in Hancock. So it is very cult-like, right? The fact that the staff came from Eastridge is absolute domestic child abuse. This is crazy. Like legitimately decades. 2008. Incident type, domestic child abuse. It's fucking wild, dude. It's crazy. Like, it's crazy to me that this was able to just continue. On Tuesday, June 24th, 2008 at 10 a.m., Chief Investigator Bowie of Delaware County Special Investigations Unit informed me that Senior Investigator Blank from the Delaware assigned a law enforcement referral that was received from the New York State Department of Social Services and Child Abuse Hotline. Law enforcement referral is teletype message that's redacted. On Tuesday, June 24th, 2008, Investigator Bowie received, that's a repeat. The envelope was it was a letter. In the packet is a letter dated June 12th, 2008, addressed to Mr. James Earl, Chairman of Board of Supervisors, Delaware County. I'll leave that name out. This letter states that the Family Foundation School in Hancock, New York, was recently cited in a federal investigation for institutionalized child abuse. The letter alleges that these children have come home in contact with local police and that local police have not opened with CPS. It's just like it's a systemic failure. That's what this is. And like people are dead. It's crazy. Mike Argyros is a real piece of shit. Like a real piece of shit. Hang up call. Ready? This is 2005. Somebody called and said that children were being abused and hung up from the family. They called 911. 1995, simple assault. It's crazy. It is so crazy to me that this shit, there's incident report after incident report after incident report. Received a copy of NYSPIN file 25 message blank dated 6/23/08. Thank you, Vicky. Law enforcement referral from the New York State Department of Social Services Child Abuse Hotline. It's crazy that Steffi, how are you? It's crazy to me that all of these investigations and there's no way. Domestic custodial interference. 8/2/2014. Right. That's what I'm saying. It's infuriating. I know. I haven't really been around. I've been super busy with this stuff. But I'm good. Right, that's what I'm saying, Sarah. Like how can this go ignored for decades? 2014. Sheriff's office reported that a student's father had picked her up and not returned her for the last 90 minutes. I wouldn't return my fucking kid either. 2014. Incident type, sex offense, sexual abuse. It's crazy, dude. Oh, thank you. I'll message you once I end. This is there are so many of these guys. There's so many of them. And like not a fucking thing ever done. Not a goddamn thing. Nothing. Nothing. Another sexual abuse. Sexual assault. Excuse me. 2/21/2014. Sickening. Oh, the doctor is the suspect of this one. It's sick. It is alleged that at around 12:30 p.m. on 2/20/2014, Dr. Vogel touched blank on her arm, then touched her leg, and then touched her genital area. Dr. Vogel then touched himself. Source requests police contact. Child is a resident at Allen Academy, which is a boarding school. It's so crazy to me. So, Carolyn, there's at least 3 more that are documented. It's fucking public. I don't know if it's public information. You might have to file to get it. But this is public information, right? I know of quite a few others that have not became public yet. It's sick. It's sick. Oh, I wonder if this is the last page. No. I read this one already. It's maddening, right? I have because I took a bunch of screenshots also of the thing. Ready for this? Tom Malkowski, 2004. Okay. According to a press release, a student at Family Foundation School fell from the second-story balcony to his death. His name was later identified to be Tom Malkowski. A quick search on the nature of the Family Foundation School reveals that it is a prison for youth. It is a place where parents can avoid responsibility for their children by shipping them off for whatever reason. I will say, like our parents, they're done a number on as well. So I don't think that that's necessarily fair. It is not hard to understand that the children sent to this boarding school must feel alone and neglected by their family. Numerous testimonies from Norma students confirm this fact. We don't know whether this fall was an accident or the young male teenager did choose to end his life on March 4th. However, things speak in favor that this was a decision on his behalf. We can only pray that he will rest in peace. They also lied to his family, right? It's sickening. It's sickening. There's so many. I was able to pull the testimonials off of the site because the Family School Truth, I haven't seen it in years, right? So this is the cease and desist. Ready? August 6th, 1990. RE, the family, cease and desist order. DAA counsel Jean Miller informed me that you represent the family program in Hancock, New York. I spoke to you last week about the division's intention to issue a cease and desist order pursuant to the mental hygiene law, ordering the family to stop offering alcohol abuse related treatment services and or representing itself as a provider of such services. In furtherance of our conversation, I'm enclosing the order. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to scroll in and I'm losing it. Hold on. Come on. Damn it. In our conversation, you stated that the family has taken compliance steps to ensure that persons residing at the family facility in need of alcohol treatment services were being offered access to the New Directions program or discharged from the program with the intention that no persons in the program were being offered alcohol treatment services as part of the family services. The division would appreciate receiving a compliance statement from your clients, including all steps taken to discharge clients from the program while ensuring continuity of care. As stated previously, if you have any questions, they were sent a cease and desist, like an actual cease and desist, and they continued. It's infuriating. And they didn't discharge students. They fucking kept them there. It's really, it's sick. It's really, and it's like, what can we do? You know? That's the problem. And they know that they have it, right? There's a bunch of documents here regarding the DAA. And it's crazy that all of these things are it's really, really crazy that they operated for so long. And they're closed now, right? But it's crazy how everybody is still so affected. You know what I'm saying? It's super fucking unfortunate. Yeah, I have this one already. I don't know if you're here. I have this one already. So I know that right, and that's what's so fucking unfortunate, right? Is that there is still so many students that are not healed, right? Like so many kids just shove it down and they don't deal with it. They don't, a lot of kids, some of them don't even talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So it is super frustrating. It's crazy. I personally don't think that they're effective either, to be honest. Um, I think that most of them cause more damage than they do good, right? But it's frustrating. Like the staff, I just want to like, I don't know. I there's got to be something that can something's got to change, right? And I don't know. I would imagine that most of these programs also have the same. I know Hancock, like it's a tiny town, like it doesn't even have like 1,000 people in it. You know what I mean? And with money comes power, right? And I think that that's generally an issue. I don't know how anybody can I don't know how they live with themselves, honestly. And like even the letter from Mike, like that is blatant bullshit, right? Like, and how did they, so these fucking principles and values that they literally tortured us over, right? They just, it's fucking crazy how they're the opposite of everything that they tortured us over. Unsilence is a good resource. So I can say this, right? I have asked several students about let me be careful here. So in Jim's DMs to me, he said that she was unaware of the abuse. So I don't know why she'd be working with any students. I've also found 0 students saying that they are involved in the investigation or are working with her, right? I think that most of us are on the same page as far as it's not for them to tell. And like, if you think about it like this, right? When did he stop working there? 2011. He's had a long time to talk about this, right? And anytime I've seen him be questioned about it, right? They lied. So why now all of a sudden is there this need to you now, like, to me, I'm gonna struggle to find the words to say it right, but like, to me, all I see is somebody that's trying to save face, right? Now that there's a criminal investigation here, we got to try to get ahead of it, right? The best thing would be to be quiet and speak to a criminal defense attorney, because we are actively trying to find ways to have everyone held accountable. Everyone across the board, right? I was talking to somebody last night, and I said that I feel like everything that I've done on the internet in the last 4 years has prepared me to do this, right? Because I love to dig, I love to investigate. And I was actually like, when I backed away from like drama, I wanted to go into true crime, right? And I'm kind of reevaluating that at this point. I think that this is like what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And I was thinking about that this morning when I saw the video about John Martin Crawford. Is like, I don't think that they think of us as actual people, right? Like, they know what happened, right? But they don't think of they don't think that the damage that they caused actually had effects on real people, right? Like, we were real people, we were real children. And the state attorney said that in Paul's hearing, right? That these are real kids. These are not, victim 1, victim 2, victim 3. Like, this is a problem, right? Right. And that's what I'm saying. You could let him out, Amanda. That's what I'm saying. Destination New York. I feel like that's all it is, right? Like, that's legitimately all they're trying to do. And it's really unfortunate, because I would think that, like, if I was in their position, that's not what I would do, right? Like, I wouldn't ever be in that position, but I would if somebody ever, came to me and told me that I had harmed them in irreparable ways, right? I wouldn't have been, I would be devastated. And when you add the amounts of the amount of students that are no longer with us, right? You can't deny the correlation there, right? And that's the thing, Boondocks. Like, I'm not trying to. I think that I've been actually relatively easy, and I am saying that it's not her place, right? And I don't think that we, as students, as survivors of that school, that we want a staff member, any staff member. It doesn't have to. We're not. This is not exclusive to him, right? This is across the board. Like, none of them should be profiting off of. They did enough, right? They did enough. And it's unfortunate that that I have to literally plead to leave it alone, right? There was a comment in her comment section by a student, and they're saying, you know, this is hard for me to listen to. And like, that should be enough, right? That should be enough. Destiny, I was actually, so his first DM wasn't bad. I'm tending to lean towards her writing the lengthy DM about the internet. And what are you crying for? Nobody's in there. And the channel, I think that she might have wrote it. But Papa, come on, really? But I think that that is what made me mad, right? Because this was not, I don't give a fuck about her channel. I'm not being, come on. You come right out and back to it. I don't really care, right? Like, I care about the fact that you're trying to sit on your platform and whitewash what happened to us, right? Just in an attempt to save your husband's reputation. And like that, as a mother, right? Like, come on, right? Because I guarantee that, and oh, I wanted to talk about this actually. There was the grandchildren of Tony and Betty also were students, right? So these people also brought their children to this school, and their children were not treated any differently. They absolutely treated their grandchildren as a regular student. They were put on sanctions. It was the same thing. It was the same thing. Right. And it's crazy. So I do think, Ethel, that's what I tend to lean towards, to be honest. I posted a short yesterday after I posted that video. I was like, damn, you know, if you were so interested in this topic, right, why didn't you cover it when the program was released, the Netflix documentary? Why didn't you cover it then? The fact that it only became relevant for you to cover was after the indictment and the arrest. That's crazy. That's so blaringly obvious to me, right? Because if I was in her position, and I'm not, but if I was, and I was trying to revitalize my channel, and I was in true crime, right? Or I reviewed, I would have talked about it then, right? While it was a hot topic. But you said nothing. People asked you or would talk about the school, and you called them liars and all this crazy shit. And now that there's movement, you want to cover the case, but you weren't at the hearing. So how involved could you be? You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. Right. Yeah, that too. Well, and here's the thing. I know that I was told that she wasn't aware of the abuse, or, you know, and listen, I understand the need to try to protect him and separate from the SA allegations. I get that, right? I understand that would be damaging, right? But you can't deny the other abuse, right? And that was there was no hiding it. There was not a staff member that worked there over a decade and was not aware of the abuse. Justin, can you think of a single way that a staff member would work there for 10 years and not know about the abuse? It's not possible. It is not possible. It is not possible. And so I didn't see, I've actually looked for, I know I don't really mess with Natasha, but I do know, and I would love to see it, but I haven't been able to find it. But I would like to see it, right? And if it was done, Calamity, like if it was done in a very she would have gotten questions and she answered it honestly, I wouldn't have a problem, right? I wouldn't, if it would have been I wouldn't care, right? And I saw that. I actually addressed that yesterday. Right. That's what I figured. But I've tried, you know how like some people will cover like drama, but not after 10 hours. You know what I'm saying? It is not possible. It is not possible. You know what I mean? It's just not. And I know like she makes it, oh, these people on YouTube, the video that I posted yesterday, these people on YouTube, like the things that y'all were saying were so crazy, but like it was the truth. So why were they, like why were they in the wrong when it was, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, so that is kind of what started, opened the door, was when the person that said they were a student, right? And Carolyn, you don't know if they're a student. So you should treat them accordingly, because you have no idea what that student has dealt with, right? So you attacking and being defensive, right, was wrong. I understand you have people that come into your chat and talk shit. I get it. But you don't know. And until you can prove that that's not a student, that makes you look fucking awful, right? Here's the thing that I see, Nancy. Here's the thing with that I see, to be honest. There's no credibility there at this point, right? And no student would go and beg her to bring this to her platform. It would never happen. There are at least 5 or 6 of us that have platforms that they would come to before, because we always like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's more, I don't know. It would never happen. And I haven't been able to find one. I know Anel, right? Carolyn and Jimmy, you know Anel. Anel has a fucking 300,000 followers on TikTok. They wouldn't go to like an outsider, more importantly, an abuser, right? It just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. So the only reason that I can see at this point is an attempt to try to cover it up, right? And that is just not going to happen, right? So that's what I'm saying, Wolf Girl. Like, why didn't they take care of it then? And that's not even really what I want. Just leave the shit off your platform and we won't have a problem. But what is really going to piss me off is invalidating the students that suffered, right? Beckett's yelling. That is going to piss me off. And I said, just leave it off your platform. We won't have a problem. Leave it off your platform. She is incapable of giving an accurate account, right? I don't care to take her down. I don't care to be involved in any of that. This is not something that I am going to tolerate. Do not bring it on your platform, because you have proved that you are incapable of giving an honest account of the situation, right? You have different motives than we would, right? Your motives would be to make I did read Jen's deposition. Jen's deposition really made me mad, right? It's really, I'll do that eventually too. There's quite a few that I want to get to. I was supposed to find the depositions in the other case. And like I said on my video yesterday, Carolyn, you're talking about the Jan deposition, right? The Jan deposition is not part of Paul's indictment. Okay. One is from a different case, right? It's not the same. Will Jan's deposition be used as evidence to connect the dots? I'm sure it will, right? But you saying that, the thing that's really making heads are rolling over the deposition, where it's coming out that people knew. They always knew. It wasn't who just got shocked by that. It certainly wasn't us. We knew. So that's why, if you are unable to separate your personal motives from the things that really fucking matter, right? Then you should not do this. Um yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. I've heard. I know that there's a lot of I know there's a lot going on there, and I've been trying to kind of piece it together, if that makes sense. I've been trying, but I'm also super busy in real life. I was gonna find, so the cases, I know that there's been like 5 settled cases. I was gonna start to dig through those today, but I got distracted when I saw these investigation, because then I was just fucking livid. I was so mad. Like, I thought that I was just going to like scream, right? Because it should have, none of us should have been there. We should have not been there. Hmm. Right. And right. It's the nuance of it, right? Like, if you have the people that have gone to the school, not just one, right? There are multiple in your comments. I've seen them saying, this isn't right. It's not right. And she may not want to see it, but her attempting to cover this with multiple survivors saying, don't talk about it. We don't want you talking about it. It will not go well for her, because no community will like the platforming of an abuser over a survivor. That it'll just bleed through YouTube. And you don't know who I know, Carolyn. So you might want to take it easy. It should have been. It should have been. And that's what is so crazy to me. Is like, the first investigation was before any of us were there. It was still a very small school, mainly like older kids. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. I remember this kid, Cassidy. Cassidy was like one of the youngest there. Um, he was in middle school when I got there. He is no longer here either. And he was a young kid, right? Thank you, Justin. Thank you, because I've been saying that. He was a young kid, and like, he was funny, right? And like, it's really unfortunate. He wasn't one that died of the normal means. He was actually shot and killed. But he was like 21 when he got shot, and he had lived in the family forever. Like, he had no life outside of the family, really. It's so sad. It's so sad. Right. I know. And it's just weird. It's just so weird to me. Right. Cassidy was, and he was like funny. It's so unfortunate. Right. And like, that's the thing. Like, I'm not even saying, I'm just saying leave it off. Like, don't bring it up. Don't talk about it at all. Um, because it's just gonna be bad if she does. Um, it's so much, right? And I'm not even being like mean about it, right? He was there for years, but and like, his whole life was cut short. He didn't even barely live a life. He was out maybe 3 or 4 years when he got shot. It's so sad, right? But like, here's the thing. Um, it, it's not like, obviously you can't blame, um we can't say the school killed us all. You can't do that. But what we can do is make a strong correlation between CPTSD and the school, right? Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, Wolf Girl, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, she's had her chances to discuss this, and be honest about the situations involved. She didn't, right? So why should we believe that now she will? Why should we believe? And you got to remember, because of the indictments and the case that's going on, these attorneys are watching everything, right? So, do you think it's a good idea to talk? Because I promise you, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I'm not under investigation. I'm not going to be under investigation. I'm not going to face any potential criminality from the job that I worked in 10 years ago, right? But for y'all to start talking about it, that would be a very bad idea. You know what I'm saying? But I gotta hop off. I gotta find something to eat. Um, I don't do much of that lately. She does. So no, she doesn't just owe the students an apology. She owes everybody else that's been talking about it on the internet for 2 years. So while she's been lying, she owes them an apology too, right? And I know that she's never going to do that, right? So, but that doesn't mean she does. She shouldn't, right? Um, but we know that that's probably never going to happen, and we probably won't get one either, and that's fine, right? That's perfectly fine. But we will not. Just don't talk about it. That's. I mean, I would think that that he. I saw a video the other day of them, and it was. I kind of felt bad for him, but it is what it is, right? But I think that it's I don't care. Like we understand that we probably never get apologies from those involved, right? Clearly. But just shut up about it. That's the best advice that I could give you. Um, but I hope everybody has a good night, and thanks for listening to me ramble. Once I get the depositions all downloaded, because they were filed in all different counties, Karma sees everything, and Karma never forgets. I think that that's what they should worry more about, but it's not me. Yes, I hope that everybody has a good night, and I will talk to y'all soon.